Thanks.
How you going?
Same. Just been chilling out, taking it easy. It's not been super busy at work or anything like that, but it's just been a kind of a long week because we had the Christmas party and a few other things.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, December begins. Is it tomorrow or the day after? Either way, it's coming up now.
30 days after December, June and November. Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I've done most of my shopping, but not quite everyone's done yet. So there's just like a few more things I need to do.
I've got
Yeah.
I've got my dad a Toblerone. I've got my mum like two things, and I've got Epsom jewelry, and
Oh,
that's it.
cool. Hello, Rob.
What up, boys?
Yeah.
What up?
What up, lawyers?
How you ding dang doodling?
I've just watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, so I'm pretty good.
Nice.
I love it. It's good.
Oh, it's fucking awesome.
Oh, wonderful. Good.
Woo.
I've never seen it before, so I didn't really know what to expect of it, and it caught me off guard. I think I didn't expect it to be as funny as it was.
Oh, that's awesome. It's kind of like I'll say more later, but it's just subtly good as well. It's just so like unconventionally, and also kind of like it's so meticulously funny. It's not like in your. It's not in your face funny. That's a weird way to describe it. It's just kind of like it's just casually just doing its thing, and that's what's kind of why I like it. Like,
Very so.
yeah.
I could
And Corey really likes it as well.
There was loads of bits where I was going like, "Oh, Troy McClure."
Go on.
No, it was just like it was basically how he worded things. Like, it was one of my favourite scenes actually. It was the bit near the start where he gets challenged, and then one of them was like, "Oh, I was always in your corner," and he was like, "That sustained me in my time of trouble."
Yeah, again, like we said before, some of the best films we like in film club have Simpsons-ish humor,
Yeah.
and like even the bit where the train robbery and there's what's his name, Mr. Woodcock, and they have to they rob the train twice, and he's the same guy is there twice, and he's like, oh god damn it.
Even that bit where he was like, "Oh, if it was my money, there's no one I'd rather steal it than you." The more films like this we watch, the more I'm like, "Oh, this is what Matt Groening spent his time watching when he was a kid." This is...
The thing is, it's just got such a good sense of humour to it.
Hey, it's so good, man, so good. That
Yeah,
the bit with raindrops keep falling on my head as well. I was like, this is just no improvements, man. This is wonderful.
That's been in my
actually, yeah, that.
Mm-hmm.
Since Ben said he was watching it, I was just like, raindrops keep falling.
Yeah, I was about to say I just came back to the right time. Did that scene from The Simpsons come from this movie? Because I saw that and I instantly went,
Oh yes.
Is that a Simpsons reference? But I was like, obviously. Oh wait, no, that's not how that works. It's the other way around. Obviously, it's like, oh wow, I didn't even know that. Especially with the bikes, I didn't think cowboys and bikes for some reason. But like when I saw it, I was like, yeah, no, this is definitely. Oh, so this is where that Simpsons scene is, because it's actually quite a nice ending scene in The Simpsons, right? With Homer and Marge like riding in the sunset. So this is like, oh, this is actually quite sweet. I didn't realize how sweet it was going to be.
Even that bit where he chucks the bike away, I was like, man, that's Troy McClure. That's...
I do enjoy that. I've picked two westerns this year, and both of them have featured the protagonist fucking about with a bicycle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, great.
Hey.
Hey.
Hello. Ugh.
I'm hoping someone else liked Road to El Dorado.
Oh crap! I forgot to put my scores up. Sorry. I liked it. I've seen it before and I had good time with it again.
Oh, thank goodness.
It was a bit of an arrow effect for me. It was like Road to El Dorado pulled me back, and then Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid let me fly.
He hated it.
You know what? I was expecting everyone to really love El Dorado and dislike Butch, and I was like happily surprised it's the other way around. I mean, not that everyone's like loathes El Dorado, but I'm glad it was Butch Cassidy is the one that most people vibed with.
Yeah, to be fair, El Dorado was a lot more flawed than I remembered, and Butch Cassidy was a lot better than I remembered. So I'm glad this is.
Yeah, that's how it was for me as well. But not to say that it isn't good, in my opinion. I think it's still a really good animated film. It's just, as I'll say later, it compared to the time it came out, it's kind of a product of its time and kind of a perfect like like amalgamation of everything that came before. So it owes a lot to like the Renaissance Disney and the DreamWorks films as well. But at the same time, it kind of like, yeah, let's just get all these ingredients. Let's get Hans Zimmer and Elton John doing the soundtrack. Let's kind of give it the whip smart humor from Aladdin and something like uh, one of the Pixar movies, and just put it all together and just kind of like make something that was going to hit the ground running. Everyone's going to love it, and it's kind of like, oh, they shouldn't have done that that way, but it's still good. But it's kind of like it's trying to be too many things, despite it. The story is being quite original. So yeah, but we shall get into that soon. So I don't want to talk all over you guys yet. So
I say you've been very vocal. I don't think I've heard you speak this much ever. Doesn't carry on. Don't stop. You need that energy. Will Rachel be joining?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's in the toilet at the minute.
Oh.
She's doing the pat. So 20-30 minutes time she'll be with us.
Why is Pat not on tonight? I thought he... Is it just because he's going to Manchester tomorrow?
I think, yeah, he has to get up early, so that's his excuse.
It's all good. So how is everybody?
Not terrible.
Oh, that's sadder than. You sure? Okay.
Sorry, I'm focusing on putting my scores in and I'm trying not to blow anything up while I'm in there.
You can't do worse than Pat. To be fair, Pat hasn't imploded the spreadsheet in a while.
Well, last time he imploded it, he lost most of his editing rights.
Could you like Control A and delete everything like that on one sheet or not?
You probably, yeah, on some of them you could. So some of them are locked. But on the score sheets one you could.
Oh, yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen.
It was that time that like I still don't know how he managed to do it accidentally, where he somehow swapped two film scores around, but also like messed up the order of the scores within the two films.
Oh,
What?
yeah. That was.
Do you think he deleted it and then tried to scramble back the scores from by memory?
It must.
Be
oh yeah,
that was
like that, because I can't understand how you would do such a like. I don't know. I don't want to say sophisticated manoeuvre. Like, I don't know how you could change so much in one go without realising you'd done it.
It was pretty special. I remember that. Oh dear.
That was one of Pat's best nil from the in-betweeners moments, where like the spreadsheet just looked nothing like it should look like, and he was like, "I don't know what's happened."
Something's wrong. I can't quite put my finger on it.
Some things never change, or if they change, they quickly change back.
This thing's. So Corey, was Ghostbusters a hit with you, or?
You know what? It was the first time that like many films that are picked, it's the first time that I've watched it like, with a more like focused, critical eye versus just like sitting down for the ride. And I did like find some like flaws that I didn't like it. Yeah. So like I think I was one of the people that kind of just saw some holes in like the story. The story was like pretty lackluster overall. But like for me, it still has the like big happy hit of nostalgia. So I still had quite a lot of fun with it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, when I heard how the script was eventually finished, it made a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I heard it was in a rush largely.
Yeah. Yeah. A drunken rush.
Ah. I had a bit of a range of responses when I said that I was watching it, because someone was like, "It's a classic," and I was like, "All right." And then I said it to someone else, and he was like, "Oh, clear 7 out of 10," and I was like, interesting.
I enjoyed a lot. Like my favorite part of it, like technically speaking, I guess you could say, is like the humor. The humor was like well done, and it landed for me. So that's the part I enjoyed the most, I think.
Yeah, I started finding Bill Murray a bit annoying.
He doesn't age as well as the rest of the parts of the film, I think, just because of his behaviour and his character and his traits in general is a bit more problematic, as which we discussed last time. So even if he is funny, it's kind of like, oh, should I be laughing at this?
It was a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same could be said for El Dorado. Like I have an opinion about how it like some parts of it didn't age very well in terms of just like content and like age appropriateness, you could say. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay, well, how are we feeling? We ready?
Is Rach back? Yeah, she's back.
I just say I wasn't on the toilet that whole time. Just making it clear.
She's not Patrick. Thank you. Thank God for that.
Oh, can somebody teach me just like easily how I could what's the function I get for the averages of all my scores?
So
you have to manually.
Equal, average, and then just the fields that you want on the column that you want.
Average.
But
or the cell.
We can ease it even better if you.
Or you can just drag across from whoever's next to you.
Yeah, if you just copy paste Rachel's score and just paste it in underneath, it will carry over.
Wait, what? But is it the same
copy
score?
The fact that there's a formula. No, but it will copy the formula, not the score.
Oh, I did that. I've always been doing it.
I like that moment where Ben was like, "Hang on."
I wasn't on the sheet, but now I see it now. Because I've always manually done it, because sometimes Alec or someone will kindly fill it in for me. And it's like, if I don't have my phone with me when I do it, or I'm on my phone and I can't be bothered to change the app to get the calculator up, I just manually do it, but like add all the thing up, divided by 6. That's the average. That's how I've always done it before.
That's how I've always done it. I want to know how do you do it in the spreadsheet, because I see that there's like and I didn't understand what just happened, but I'll figure it out.
it's basically just equals average, and then you would be I 443 to I 448.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see.
And then press the tick. Sometimes it doesn't come up straight away. You need to press the tick at the top when you're done.
Yeah, I've only like fully understood like half of what you all are telling me, so I'll just leave it for now. But I do want to figure it out because it just seems bad to know.
You're in good company. Okay, so all ready?
Alec, why did you pick these films?
I'm glad you asked, Robert. Yeah, I was kind of wasn't sure what to do for my double bill. El Dorado's like I think been a favourite since junior school, if not primary school. Actually, I was still in Bexley Heath, I think.
Wait, hang on. Junior
But
school and primary school are different things for you?
yeah, this wasn't the
Oh,
same way I
really?
was expecting.
Yeah.
Just surprised me.
Yeah, well, there you go. Maybe it was because I'm so youthful. Um, I just changed things behind you. Yeah. So El Dorado was like, yeah, a very very old favorite. And Butch Cassidy's one of my dad's favorites. And I was like, oh, they're two sort of two. I don't want to say like similar films, like maybe like kind of surface level similar because it's about like a couple of buddies and they're not very on the right side of the law kind of thing, and they go and have an adventure and shit. But I don't know. I think while I was watching it, I kind of went like I kind of appreciate how the dynamics kind of change depending on like the kids movie and the adult movie, where like the kids movie it's more about them having an argument, whereas like Butch Cassidy and that it's a lot more about like the external threat causing them to infight a little bit, but not that much. Like there's like a lot of um, stuff that they kind of are comfortable around each other with to like an extreme degree. And I don't know. We can get into that. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to sort of chat about because the obvious one I could have done was Road to El Dorado and The Man Who Would Be King. And I didn't not pick that just because Rob was going to absolutely torpedo the fuck out of it. But
Controversial choice.
yeah, I sort of don't know. It just seemed a bit obvious to me, and I was just kind of like, I also didn't want to pick it because it's nasty. Not a very nice. It's not a very nice film.
Yeah, I must admit, when we were watching Road to El Dorado, I was kind of thinking there's a lot of problems that I had with The Man Who Would Be King in this.
Oh no! Did I think you liked it more?
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, I definitely found it a lot more passable than The Man Who Would Be King. Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
nowhere near as
Phew.
nasty, but like, yeah, there's still some context issues I had.
Yeah, I mean, no one chucked a small Indian man out of a moving train. So I was like, you know what?
But that's
Better
not to
than
say they wouldn't. That's...
not to say. I'm
Um,
sure they would. I will vouch for these men. Um. So yeah, carry on.
Oh, sorry, man. I stopped you mid flow. You can go
No, that's right. The flow is gone. You carry right on.
on. No, it was just the it's that kind of story where it's kind of like, oh, two people end up in some kind of like foreign land, and then they're just accepted as the ones who are like way more smarter than everyone else, and they're kind of like held as this thing. And like when at the start I was kind of going like, there's got to be a payoff for this. And then when the payoff, well, kind of the payoff, was that the I forget their names, but the one who was supposed to be like the good guy in charge there. So not the one who kind of like had the magical powers and then went off and
the chieftain, whatever his name was. What's his name?
Tannenbach?
Yeah, him, the big guy.
Yeah, but because the payoff was kind of like that.
The
That he knew that they weren't gods, but he was still kind of like using it to his advantage, kind of thing. Like he was still using it to rule. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I don't. In the kind of film that Road to El Dorado is, I was kind of like, I don't want it to be. I don't want that to be kind of like the schmaltzy ending kind of thing, you know. So yeah, I don't know. A lot of it I wasn't really getting on with. The bit that I did get on with is the relationship between the two main characters. I thought the way that they were playing off one another was really nice. I suppose I just found it a shame that the rest of the context around it was that whole thing of like the locals being stupid and all of that.
Very well. Fine.
I think, yeah, I'm gonna be really straightforward. I really, not really, well, I did struggle. I wasn't very happy for a lot of the film, was I, Rob? I think, yeah, as a film and as a DreamWorks, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although you
DreamWorks
do
film.
keep
Like,
referring
you know,
to
it
it as
wasn't
the
like
Disney film.
it wasn't like kid enough for me, and then wasn't adult enough. It just kind of like floated in the middle as a whole film. And then I think I found some of the themes problematic. Rob kind of touched on it a little bit. I kind of struggled with the whole, you know, I guess kind of perception of I guess the people that were the native people that were there, and the idea of kind of being perhaps either not intelligent enough to kind of believe otherwise, or some of the language around like if we don't do this they will kill us, that kind of like barbaric behavior. And it just kind of felt like it played into quite a lot of kind of stereotypes, and kind of had obviously like obviously touched on the theme of like colonialism, but it kind of had the kind of stereotypes didn't really do anything to kind of divert from that for me. And then I really struggled with the character of Chell, and how she was depicted throughout the film, as well. And I think I think towards the end got to kind of like a good, comfortable balance. I think throughout the film, I really struggled with her character and kind of what she was depicted to be, or the role that she was kind of playing, and kind of whether she had to play the role in that way, or they had to kind of draw her, I guess, in kind of that way. And then I think I can't remember what I said to you, Rob, at the end, but it kind of felt a bit like the ending was slightly dissatisfying, in the sense that there was a lesson learned by Miguel, the blonde one. Is that what he's called? Miguel, the blonde one.
Yeah.
Like there was kind of a lesson or a feeling of consciousness that was kind of that final 15-20 minutes, but it kind of was like the lesser of the two evils. They still weren't like any kind of better in my kind of perspective than Cortez's lot, and they still kind of were kind of like not got away with it. I don't know, I kind of didn't feel like they were kind of any better than Cortez's group. So yeah, I just kind of struggled with it a little bit, in terms of some of it felt a bit stereotypical, slightly sexist, slightly racist at certain points. For me. But that's my opening statement. Take what you will.
Okay.
I mean, bear in mind my job is around EDI, so like, I probably looked at it with slightly more critical lens than I should have done. But yeah.
I don't even know what EDI stands for.
So there we go.
Oh shit. Oh no. Ben, help.
Well, it's this one. To me, I didn't quite like grow up with it like it did some of the other Disney and DreamWorks classics of this era. Even though I did see it when I was little, I think I caught it on TV when I was like 10 years old, just around the time after it came out. So I was still at the right age for it, and I did have fond memories of it. And I was saying to Corey that if a film is worth its salt in anything, if it becomes a meme in some way, it's made its mark on history. And El Dorado has so many great moments that have become memes since. And I was like, I'll give it credit for that. And its impact was just like, yeah, it had so many quotable lines and great moments in it. I think as in DreamWorks fashion, it's kind of like it was just after Prince of Egypt and just before they did CGI animation with Shrek and everything else. So it was kind of like just on the last cusp of it turning to the next era. And you could tell that they kind of learnt and copied so much from the Disney movies of the 90s with like Mulan and Aladdin and Lion King, and they're trying to get like, yeah, what works with these films? Let's see if we can do the same with that with us. And it's like, if Disney can do it, we can do it better, kind of thing. And I do appreciate like the story itself. It's kind of like it's something that's unusual, but I feel like kind of like, well, this is an interesting premise throughout the mysterious El Dorado, fabled city, lost city kind of thing. That's a cool idea for kids to know about, and the Aztecs and all that. That's a really interesting part of history, and the Spanish conquistadors is very fascinating to think and look back on. However, obviously, the colonialism part of it probably isn't something good, but at the same time, should be something being made aware of, like how Pocahontas did, like the English settlers going in to discover North America. It's a bit tough thing to kind of readapt now, but it's kind of like an important point of history that kind of should be covered up, and well, not covered by for the people and younger generation to know all about. And so like El Dorado is kind of like doing that next part of the history that hasn't been told, and they were doing it in the proper DreamWorks fashion of like two really like fast talking kind of like jokey duo that has like so much chemistry and kind of like back and forth, and they've just got a lot of yeah, it's just they're endearing from the start, even though they're scoundrels. And obviously, some of this carries over into Butch Cassidy as well. They're kind of like lovable rogues as well. So that's kind of like a good kind of focus point to kind of like rock the story around. And yes, sometimes the humor kind of is a bit like quite relentless, and sometimes some of the jokes don't quite land as well as I'd like them to. But I do appreciate how like they kind of like written, and how they kind of stumble into things, and they kind of like become these false prophets by happenstance and accident. And it's just kind of like a comedy of errors after that, how they try and, yeah, we've got this idea, we just want to get our goal, get out. Very selfish, but kind of like, yeah, I can see the arc coming, and how they're going to kind of like, as the film's going, they're going to realize they're with their ways, they're going to decide to not do this and that. But obviously the film kind of goes in a different route, which I found interesting, is that they do see their other ways, but in a different way than you'd think. And like Rachel does, it's kind of like, yeah, things happen, and all sort of crazy like revelations and meeting of certain characters, and it's kind of like the twists and turns of the story. The final act is quite unexpected in a good way. But it kind of like, yeah, it does seem anticlimactic. There's like, yep, they managed to escape and get out, and they don't have their gold, but they got each other. So it's kind of like they ended up older and wiser, but they're kind of in the same sort of boat at the same time. So
the real gold was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, you could say so. Well, Shell too. Well, she's the gold that they got in the sense. But yeah, I suppose whether or not that certain characters worked by today's standards as well back then as well. It's like, I do like Shell's character. She's really interesting and different. But I can see why she's kind of problematic in certain degrees, just because at first she's kind of like
Cheryl.
Shell. Is that what's her name?
Cheryl.
Shell, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, she's kind of. Is she a femme fatale, or is she just kind of like using her looks to kind of get her way, kind of thing, or what? But I suppose it's kind of like you'd want to a bit more develop to what she really, really wants, apart from her just getting out. So it's just like, wait, does she know about the rest of the world? And she's one of the few people clued in about, oh yeah, she can see right through these guys. These two Spanish guys are they're not gods. They're just idiots that just fumbled into El Dorado by mistake. So it's kind of weird that there's only a few people that kind of like got clued in on that. But obviously, I give it the benefit of the doubt because it's a kids' family movie, so they can't really too much into it. But yeah, like some parts I think really work well, and other parts kind of like fall flat a bit for me. But overall, I think animation is great. Does a great job with characters, mannerisms, and like how they are visually. The tourist story is visually told is so well done, and the music's a nice touch with Elton John and Hans Zimmer and Tim Rice just doing a good kind of like interesting style. But yeah, I think there's a lot to like and a lot of things I can get why people are like it didn't work for me. But yeah, so I'm glad I saw it again though. It's a really great fun film to revisit, and like it deserves to be seen at least a couple more times just because it's kind of like it's just back when like studios really cared for doing 2D animation for the masses, and it was kind of like, yeah, let's just do it well and tell the story in a way, in a good crowd pleasing way. So it deserves props for that, I suppose. Yeah.
Go on, Corey. Do you want to dogpile also?
Yeah, so I had seen this before, and I remembered it fondly, and I can't remember when I had seen it. It had been a really long time. Um, I just remember it for one, like enjoying like the humor aspect of it the most, and I remembered why when I would see the gifs that are still floating around, and it's just how well done the animation is in terms of like their facial expressions, and yeah, it makes me smile just thinking of it in my head. And the voice acting was done really well, and uh, yeah, those are the highlights for me. And visually, it was beautiful. Um, so in terms of where it kind of left me wanting more was, and Rachel kind of touched on, kind of like near the end, like I did realize that like the arc of the characters, they didn't really evolve very much. Like I kind of like, it was more like, now that I think of it, it was more of just like the journey of their friendship and how they kind of went through some like change and conflict with the introduction. From what I can see, the introduction of Chell, right? It kind of just added to, she basically became like a third in their group, basically, with the separation between them. Like only one of them is romantically involved with her, and then what the other friend is kind of just like there as just a friend. So that was different, and obviously they went through difficulty with that. And in terms of just like everything else that was there in the story to work with, I do think there was something like they kind of like had missed opportunities in terms of just going a little bit deeper. And in terms of my impression of like the people, yeah, they were kind of just not really involved. They're like not really and like but I did get a better impression of the chief in the sense that I did perceive that he was more skeptical and didn't so readily believe that they were actual gods. He was just kind of rolling along with it. And yeah, so, and I thought it was interesting how when I first realized that the chief really just genuinely just like said, not in explicitly, but like, I know you're not a god. When he was on the boat and realizing that he didn't want to leave, so I just thought that was interesting. I thought that it was just a little weird actually that I guess he just like built up enough of an appreciation for that him as a person for him to want to stay and live with them. But it was just a bit weird. Like, well, how was that going to go? Like, was he going to continue to pretend to be a god and live as God, and everybody like, regard him as a god and treat him thusly? I thought that would have been a bit strange. So yeah, I did kind of wish for more in terms of just like them having more growth, like the characters having more growth, because I realized that like when they were leaving, they were trying. Well, the dark haired one, he was trying to leave with all the gold still, and it just so happens that he just lost it by accident. Oh well, darn. But yeah, all that aside, I still had a very good time with it. But yeah, the story did leave me, and the characters did leave me wanting for a bit more. But I still think what it did do right. It did very well. And oh yeah, and I did have a little issue when I hinted at when the call started that I thought there was something that in particular that didn't age very well, and that was I was a little bit off put by like the suggestiveness of like sexuality in what I feel is definitely a film, like a movie geared towards children. And I do think that like I do appreciate like family movies and children's movies that kind of aim to like entertain like all ages, and I think that could be done very well, and I appreciate that obviously. But I think just like going with that angle, it was a little weird, and I'm glad that kind of has just like gone away now in more modern films. So yeah, that was just my one kind of. I'm glad. Yeah, could have gone without that. But yeah,
Something you might be interested in knowing is that that's actually Chel's design was actually a bit of a sore spot like during the production, and they were like, she's a bit too sexy, so that you need to kind of like, be a bit more conservative here. This is the more conservative version of what they drew.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny just how she's represented. Like, it's not even her design as a character. It's like her interactions with the friends, the dark haired friends, and like they're massaging each other, and he's like,
Massage part.
yeah, and then when they're caught together in like the temple, and he's just like all like dazed and like ruffled up, and it's like so obvious to adults, like what's and it's just like, and they were, yeah, it's like it would be enough for like young children to be like, there's something going on here, and it's just like, I don't know if that's it's just
That sounds completely out of my head as a kid, but I have seen it pointed out that when she sort of gets up, Tulio's head is quite far away.
Yeah, she's giving him oral sex. Yes.
She wasn't kissing him.
No, and that's the problem. And I think that
I didn't get that.
there's no other, and I know we might come on to this later. Sorry, Simon, so I need to do opening statement, but there's no other like not Disney or like DreamWorks, Pixar, whatever, like female interest that you actually see ever do anything like that. I've never in all the Disney films or Pixar films, whatever that I've watched, you don't see that, and I think it's interesting that it was kind of like, I don't know, I think there's kind of like over sexualization of like, she could have been femme fatale without doing that, and I think there's a depiction, I guess, of like, yeah, I don't know, kind of like indigenous women. I don't know. I just didn't feel comfortable with how they were depicting that. They could have very easily not have done that, and I think that was a problem that I had. I think she could have looked sexy and used her mind and her and they could have highlighted how like intelligent she is because she's read so much, and actually, or maybe she's found some way to learn and wants to therefore leave and explore the world or whatever. Like, there wasn't really much development to understand why she wanted to go, and so therefore it was frustrating to see that kind of it was almost just drawn down into that kind of sexualization, and obviously act. That was kind of the kind of real depth they really as a character. I think that was problematic. Yeah.
And even if it was so like subtle that only adults would understand, it still gives me the ick for like adults to knowingly put that in a young person's children's a movie as a kind of Easter egg, and just like, and if we're all watching it together as family, that's just like, why would you want? That's not like amusing to me. It's just creepy and icky, and it actually came up in like uh somebody, there was a like this goblins game. Ben, you showed it to me actually, where it's just like somebody managed to slow down the goblins like diving into in a line, like in a chain, like diving in, and it's so obvious that the animators had one of the goblins like eating the other goblin's butt. Like that's what he was doing, and they hit it so fast and so small, and that you would have to really search to find it.
This is not Goblin Slayer.
Sorry, I just disconnected for like a second, and it said I've been gone for a while. What are we talking about?
Oh, it's a Clash of Clans thing. It's the meme that Jen posted.
Yeah, it was on Instagram. Someone found it. This like animation of some cheap movie with goblins in it, and they're being thrown down a well, and they go one by one. They get pushed down the well, and then there's one goblin that kind of like, yeah, he's enjoying to be the next one in line after the other one goes in face first, and he's next in line. If you get what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'll find it and I'll show you it. I think you must have missed it.
Yeah.
But either way, it's like basically adult animators being a bit like cheeky and naughty about animating something.
I would say definitely that's a problem with animators in DreamWorks and Disney. Heck, Disney has something called the Vault, which has all the unregistered and more adult stuff of the Disney characters. They have it all locked up because, you know, it's too much, and they're like, we know it exists because we have like a safety deposit box of it, but we don't want to talk about it. It's not something that is like on the main post, but it's like, we know it exists, let's not talk about it. But I've got to say, this film is definitely how I would describe a I was going to say a buddy cop film, but it's not exactly. They're not cops. They're criminals. So it's like a buddy criminal film. Yeah. So, but like the point. Yeah, but it's like I see why you all have said why they kind of like lacked that much character development, because they had. Well, they were like the famous criminals that already had wanted posters at the beginning of the film. From what I remember reading is, because this was supposed to be a sequence of like TV series and films after this film, they were supposed to go to other like world trips looking for buried treasure with Shell and doing all of that adventuring, except that this failed at the box office. So they went, well, let's cancel that plan because there's like it didn't make money, so we can't continue their adventures. So they might have like had better like story developments outside of or after this film, but we will never know because they didn't make any sequels or anything, except for like this. As Ben was saying, that this has so many memes. One of my favorite memes is definitely the like Parks and Rec version of this, where you got Shell and she's like, "This is my boyfriend Tulio, and this is Tulio's boyfriend Miguel." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, that's about right, yeah, that seems because they work so well together, and like there is watching it again now, it's like you go, oh right, yeah, they did have that like good like friendly like dynamic, and they're all very buddy together. But then after it's kind of like, is it sexist to say that because of a woman they split up? Because it sounds, if you like saying it out loud, you go, oh right, yeah, that is kind of like what the story was portraying. I don't know if that I like it like that, and I was like, oh, that's a bit. I never, as a kid, obviously, never thought about it that way. But like looking at it now at a very critical eye, you go, I don't know if that's what they were planning, but it feels like that. I don't know if that was like a subtext there, but it felt wrong, and that's like, I feel like all the Shell being sexy and stuff is like passed by my, like just like flew over my head when I watched it as a kid because I didn't think about that stuff. I just thought, oh cool, they're playing like weird basketball with like armadillo, and like that's like, you know, it's a thing that you just see as a kid and you go, oh cool, and all the action scenes and stuff. But it's like looking at it now, you go, is this really a children's movie? I feel like it isn't, but it kind of is. I don't know how to explain it, and it's
I do have to confess, I do think she probably jump started my puberty somewhere. Like,
God damn it.
I couldn't tell you what happened, but something.
All the best animated girls did, I'm afraid to say.
Oh, I mean, like this is like beginning of also that like early, because it is the early 2000s, right? So it will be like all the other sort of like animated beginning with, it's that 2D animated, but like with a bunch of CG added to it films. Like the thing that I thought was like Adventures of Sinbad, and like something called like Titan something, and I was like, oh right, yeah, this is the beginning of.
Yeah,
that's it. And like
Sinbad was after this, and that was the last 2D animation DreamWorks did before Shrek. So yeah, and Titan AE, I can't remember when that came out. That was around this time as well.
Yeah, because like there's I think that I would say this is like generally that period of time where they were experimenting around, because like I think some of the animators or some of the production guys from Disney moved to DreamWorks during this time, right? I think that's when it was. So it explains like the storyboarding and like so like story decisions that they made. So it's like, oh, I see what happened. Do I quite agree why it happened? I mean, like, for better or worse, certain things that happened with Disney and certain things that happened with DreamWorks. DreamWorks is still, you know, it's not as popular as Disney, obviously, but like, it's still not too bad. Like, it's got its stuff that we still like love. But this film is just like, as much as I did love it, it's like, oh right, yeah, it's aged a bit poorly, like the CGI gold near the end of the story. It's like, oh yeah, it's just a bit, just like aged just a little poorly, because like it's just a bit too unfocused. But you know, that's how it is. That's the way it is with these like quote unquote children's films.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing to look back at now. It's like all those kind of like early 2000s films that use a little bit of CGI. Like now, it's super obvious. And it's like it's only like a few frames at a time, but like it's always like it always really stands out now.
Yeah, that thing.
Since you did it at Lilo and Stitch, I now hyper look for it now, and I'm like, fuck. Aladdin is just a bunch of animation cells on like a thing, and I'm like.
Some of it isn't that obvious, but it's like the more you look at, like some films do it better than others. Like I think Beauty and the Beast did it for one scene, and Aladdin did. Like Beauty and the Beast did it for like the chandelier and the Taylor's All This Time dance sequence. Aladdin did it for them for the carpet ride inside the Cave of Wonders, and because they were so kind of like big, intense, fast-paced action scenes, you kind of were like, okay. Especially with obviously Aladdin, is that you kind of like, okay, this is the one sequence that's going to be like, this technology, it's new, it's a gimmick, cool. And then after that, they sprinkled it a bit more. And like, obviously in this, they did the gold. And then in the beginning, they did the barrels, which were CGI. Some of the scenes do look quite well integrated. And obviously, I might be a bit biased, but I think like Iron Giant does it the best in terms of integration of CGI and 3D animation, because the Iron Giant is entirely a 3D animated character in a 2D film.
That's such a like.
Yeah. But just because of like, they'll commit to this character for the whole entirety of the film in this way. So it's kind of like they're sprinkling it in there for the budget. Whenever they have the budget to do it, they'll do it. So sometimes you can say, oh, we don't have enough budget for this, but we still want to do this crazy sequence. And I think another one, that a film that was really guilty of it in a bad way, much as I loved it as I was little, was Quest for Camelot, Magic Sword, and then maybe a film I might pick one day because I do have a huge soft spot for it. But that used CGI in such an obvious way. It was kind of like, oh, that looks too cheap and too added in last minute, when the rest of the film is quite beautifully animated in 2D. So it was, and that was around this time as well. So it's around this time they just like did it without either not planning it well or not kind of fully committing. And I think the last film that did it well was probably Treasure Planet before they just went entirely 3D. So Treasure Planet was, yeah, that was a great example. But yeah, it's a bit up and down.
I gotta say, there was a bit where I was actually pulling my hair out because okay, sorry, I'm actually pulling my hair out. But the first time I tried to watch this to score it, I had to stop about half an hour in because I was like, "Fucking hell, there's so many more flaws in this than I realized." But like, there was a bit. It's when they were gonna jump in the barrels, and they jump into the barrels, and then they're immediately on a pallet on like a netting kind of thing, and then they get pulled onto the ship, and all the guards go like, "Oh, where the fuck did they go?" And I was like, "Okay, when they look down at the barrels, I want to see a pallet underneath there and some netting to indicate that that was already being loaded on." And I looked down, and there was none of that shit. So
Yeah.
they jumped in the barrels, and then the animators magicked in a pallet and some netting to help them escape. And I was like, "You bastards, fuck you."
It's just a continuity error.
I was just like, convenience, and I was like, no, no, you literally magicked in materials to get them out of that. Fuck's sake.
The old Star
So,
Wars trick.
so upset. So upset. Um, yeah, I do want to push back on like a couple of things. Actually, this doing this double bill has made me a bit disillusioned in critics. Actually, I'll say about Butch Cassidy too. But one of the things that I heard reception wise was that most critics went, "Oh, Tulio and Miguel are like very interchangeable," and I was like, "I don't know about that at all. Was that an issue for anyone?"
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I think they were both quite well rounded, like individual characters.
Yeah, they're quite distinct.
Because I do also want to push back on the idea they didn't really like learn anything, because I feel like I feel there's actually like quite a lot of stuff that you like just kind of subtly. I found that Tulio um he generally sort of fell back on doing like a little bit of a poker face, like when someone was like examining him a little bit, like when they're talking about when they see the map and everything. Miguel's like very like, "Oh my fucking god, this map's amazing," and Tulio's like, "Okay, how about we just do that like over? Shut up," like kind of thing. And he's doing that with Chell a little bit as well. Like when he first meet her, she first meets her. He's trying to work out what her angle is rather than doing something like it just kind of makes sense on its face to have like someone help you with your con who's already who knows everything works, but like he's constantly keeping her like at arm's length, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be a new partner," and he's like, "Partner in training." Like he just generally like keeps a bit of distance with people. So when she is talking to him about leaving with him, and like it's kind of nearer the end where he's a lot more open about how he's feeling with her and stuff. Like the poker face isn't like a thing as much. Like I think that's quite like a subtle like change. But when he's talking to her about it, and he's like, come back to Spain, like especially for me, yeah, mainly for me, like fuck Miguel, like kind of thing. Like that's a lot more open than like about how he's feeling than he was being like previously. And I think also like
Yeah, because he's had a blowjob.
well, yeah, well, you know, we all get there. We all get to places with by different pathways. Um, But also like he was just like completely like money focused and everything, and I think making the conscious decision to go, I'm gonna try and like destroy the cave kind of thing, and like a byproduct of that is that I'm gonna lose the money. I think that is something that is like a big deal where Tulio's concerned. Like he kind of, I don't want to say he was like one dimensional, but considering that was such a focus for him, the fact that he is just about to give it up just to help the people of El Dorado, I was just like, yeah, like that's a really big deal for him. And um, I think a similar thing could be said for Miguel, where he wants to have the adventure and he's found the adventure and he spent the whole time going, oh my god, I really want to absorb everything I can, and now Tulio's kind of fucking him off and that, and he's just like, well, fuck you, I'll stay here then. But then throwing that away as well, like they kind of having to throw away the things they want to help each other, and I was like, I feel like there's quite a lot of character growth there, so I kind of did want to like just put back at the end, it didn't come away better.
Yeah, that's a good point because they both had their goals set on. Let's go to this place, take all the gold back, and come back as rich guys kind of thing. Loot the place, typical. But obviously, they were kind of like that. They were willing to split apart their friendship because each one of them realized one thing versus another. Like one wanted to stick to the plan, one decided, actually no, I want to stay. I really like it. These people are amazing. There's more to it than going back and being this or that with all the gold. And it's like, yeah, obviously Miguel kind of was like, yeah, sure, I want to stay here, and because it's just such a nice, peaceful place, and it's like, yeah, maybe there was a bit of bias on his character. Is like, look, I can still be treated as a god if I stay. So he's kind of got that stuff on the side of him, but at the same time, he was willing to like leave his friend behind. Or Tilio was willing to, despite him leaving, saying he'd leave himself and be like, actually, you know what? It's kind of like they both realized something at the end of that, like they're willing to split apart from each other, but at the end of the day, they still was like, look, we need to do something that benefits both of us, and that means me go with you and me leaving the gold behind. So they kind of like lose them. They lose the place they belong, and they both Tulio loses the gold. So it is like you say, they both come out of it kind of like at loss, but at the same time, their friendship is stronger than ever.
Yeah,
But
I
they
don't.
didn't.
Go on.
They didn't. They only lost that gold by accident. Like they were trying to. Tulio was trying to leave with the gold, right?
He
That was
wants
the original plan, yeah.
But when they're coming up with the plan, Chell goes, "What about the gold?" And he's like, "Oh," and that's when he's like,
Yeah.
"Chief." Yeah.
But
because that's before the ship
like,
actually.
the plan, were they like so he knew that he might have lost the gold, like he was willing to take the chance that he might lose it in that plan.
Yeah, once they realized that the settlers are coming for them, after they saw the smoke in the distance, they were like, "Oh shit, they're coming for Dorado," and so we got to do something quick. We got to leave now and use the ship as some kind of like distraction or like something to kind of like make sure no one can get in. They didn't know.
When they talk about the plan, Chell does bring it up as like, "What about the gold?"
I do remember that.
But
point.
even at the end, they say it. Sorry, Corey. At the end, he still mentions the gold at the very final scene when they all three of them kind of walk off as well.
They still were like,
yeah.
But
yeah,
I think that's something else as well. Like they don't just do it for each other either. Like they both kind of recognize that it's the city that like they need to save from it, and they kind of put their shit aside, like kind of thing. So,
yeah.
like, don't...
I did like how in the end I liked how like they were both. I obviously didn't like what was happening. You know, they're kind of just like splitting off on bad terms, basically. You know, they were both kind of like hurt by each other, and so I did like how Miguel chose to abandon what he wanted to do for himself because he cared about like the well-being of his friends. He saw that like they were probably gonna if he had not jumped in and brought the sail down, he might have died in the plan. So he was sacrificing something to help his friend, and Tulio was like half sacrificing the gold, and like he might have gotten away with it, but he might not have, and he knew that. So that I did like how they both kind of just like sacrificed something for the better of the people that they had gotten to know there, and for the sacrifice for their friendships too. So that's nice. Yeah.
Because something else I wanted to bring up as well was what you were saying about the how the indigenous people are treated, and they're kind of, I don't know. Rachel, I think you said like you felt that they were treated like they were stupid. Um, I'm not sure how much I agree with that when we've got like the three like main characters we have from El Dorado are the chief, Jekyll Khan, and Chell, and of those three, two of them see through Tulio and Miguel like pretty quick, and the only person who who does believe that they're gods is the religious guy who's like he really wants them. He's really like heavily invested in them being gods. So I'm like, I obviously it's difficult to say when there's only three characters for like the entirety of them, but like I think there's a lot of culture and ingenuity that you're getting from them. Like when Miguel's going through the city and interacting with everybody, I think he's seeing a lot of stuff that he's not familiar with, and I think there's a lot more like respect for the culture than like just because you say about like they want to fool them for stuff and they're afraid like they're gonna get sacrificed for them and everything, but like I feel like if you've just wound up in this sort of time period as well, if you've just rocked up on this island and like you're confronted with this, you possibly do think that as like an inexperienced like person, which they are. They've never really encountered anyone like this before. So like I do agree, like it comes off as ignorant, but they are ignorant, and it's only when they become immersed in it that they aren't, or less so.
But I think there were some times, like I can't remember what bit, how far into the movie it was, but where they were being carried, I think, in like a canopy or kind of like tent thing, and then they were kind of joking then, obviously, about that had kind of gotten away and kind of fooled, kind of fooled everyone. And I think probably part of that feeling is also because, like with Miguel choosing to stay, I don't really feel like we got tons of depth about the community and kind of what they did, what they were like. It was actually quite shallow in terms of like when he said I wanted to stay, well, why? Like there wasn't really much that we learned about the community, like otherwise. So it just felt a bit like we weren't really shown any kind of the portrayal of almost them being gullible and kind of believing them didn't really kind of wasn't offset by I guess kind of anything more about the kind of people that they were with, and then the only kind of other comment you got was that fear of, like I said, kind of them being seen as kind of barbaric or killing them and stuff. It wasn't kind of like, oh, we could reason our way out of this or have a conversation, with the chief out of this, or Jekyll Khan, for example. It was just kind of like, if we don't fool them, they will kill us, and it kind of didn't really. It was kind of a bit for me quite like black or white. It wasn't really wasn't really much else that they were going to expect or could expect from that community. So it felt quite like shallow, for me. And then, like I said, that kind of feeling convinced as to why Miguel would want to stay there. I didn't really feel there was enough necessarily there to kind of warrant that necessarily beyond the kind of experiences he's had with them believing he was a god. But the majority of people, obviously not those three.
Yeah, I can agree they could definitely have expanded like parts because that's such a big part of Miguel. I mean, yeah, just fleshing out El Dorado in general. Like, yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing about like how they live or, what as a community kind of what they do apart from the football kind of bit. There wasn't really much about actually this is how they live and this is their way of life, and actually, there wasn't any of that at all really explored. It just was they're either going to sacrifice somebody or they're playing this football, and that's not really again involving the community. That's with like it wasn't the army, was it? It was like a kind of the best players or whatever. There wasn't really much apart from the bit with the guitar and the dancing. There wasn't really much kind of actual community exploration of how they lived. It just felt a bit kind of that kind of like one-dimensional perspective that you kind of get when it's like colonizers versus the kind of natives, just kind of like one like historical kind of not trope, but yeah, there wasn't really much development there, which I thought was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, see, this is making me kind of half regret not picking the man who would be king, because that's like dialed up to 11 in that one, and it's very, oh god, it's a lot more like exploitative of like the indigenous people, and it's a lot more
Mm.
like disdainful almost, like, and like the yeah, it starts off with like this Indian butler guy, and the two main guys just kind of like get tired of him, and they just kind of chuck him out of the window of the moving train, and it's like, fuck me, like this is so horrible.
And they're the heroes.
They're the heroes. Yeah, because you're going like, oh yes, because they're British and they don't like that sort of thing, and it's like, ugh, disgusting. Um, but yeah, like with this, I feel like there's a lot more respect of that. Like Miguel gets like when Miguel learns about people being like sacrificed for shit
Mm.
like that, he's getting like that just does not sit with him like at all. That's just fundamentally no, and like
Mm.
he's constantly like when he sees people getting beaten up and that he goes in there and he's like getting in people's faces and stuff, and like I think like there's a lot more. Miguel's got a lot of like just respect for human
Mm.
life and stuff like that, and even Tulio does to like it's buried more, but I think considering they are presented as the indigenous people, I think Tulio and Miguel have like a lot of respect for them, like as a people, than you'd probably expect.
More so Miguel is what my impression was
Yeah.
of two characters.
Mhm.
And like as a like I think as an upside from what I gathered in my watch, the only person that was really eager to sacrifice anybody was that evil priest guy.
Oh.
So everybody else seemed kind of not into it at all.
Mm.
Well, that's why that's why Tonabak's looking like so freaked out when he hears that they've shown up. Like he looks like really like, oh fuck, because like that he obviously is aware of that being like a side of it, and he knows that Zekil Khan's going to try and like big that up like a lot.
Mm.
So yeah, I think when he's like, I know you're not gods, but I don't really care. It's like it's just come after Miguel going like, we're not sacrificing anybody, we're done with that. Like, and he's like, fuck yeah, like some more of that, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was like there were some bits that I did think were quite nice. Like there was the the bit where they accidentally agreed to sacrifice all the gold, and then she kind of saves it for him. I thought that was quite a nice moment. And there's one bit I thought was really nice because it was to me it came across as really subtle, and it was when it's when they first show up in El Dorado. And they're both like, oh, El Dorado. And even though the horse can't talk, he kind of mouths it along with them.
Altivo's probably my favourite movie horse. Like,
Yeah,
They had
that
to
horse is
do this
MVP.
I love
It's
just
one of
watching
my
it.
favorites.
Yeah.
I think in lesser films, like the horse would be still on the boat and they wouldn't be part of the story. But the fact they kept him in the story, being like, okay, no, we're going to rescue him. We're going to figure out a way to get him on that tiny little dinghy, and then just go and get washed up. And that was brilliant, creative choice to keep the horse throughout the whole film. That was a wonderful idea.
And he's the only one that actually got gold out of El Dorado because it was still stuck on his horseshoes. That makes it good. Oh yeah, no, okay, that's true. But like, he's the only one that went, oh, there's no gold. And it was like, oh, why is his face so well animated? I don't know, but it's perfect. I just so to think about it. So great.
Altivo's face is a treasure.
The first scene with the horse in it, when he's still he's Cortez's horse, right? He was like,
Mhm.
and you could see his expressions right away, like all the subtlety. He's like, "Oh, what is this guy like? What's his deal?" It was just really funny. I really appreciated that. Really good.
Simon, I don't know if you know your camera's not on. It's just loading still. I don't know if you've put it on.
Oh, I can see
Oh,
him.
I'm
yeah.
like
We can see
it's
him.
like
Oh, I
for
see,
me
it's
it's
just
like half and half for me because like
He's grimacing
for me
like
it's like
horse.
Rob. For me it's kind of like Rob is like stuck and is like. Oh no, he just lifted his head. So okay, maybe it's not stuck. But it's like,
So I'm
no,
I'm
you've just
looking
got
for a
the
card that I've
purple
sold.
The call
box for
has
me.
oh,
the
okay,
quality
good,
of
yeah,
the call is really shit for
it-
a moment, and that's good.
I could
okay. That's
actually with Rachel. Sometimes I feel like you're. I've always seen your video and always seen your audio, but sometimes I think I see a lag. I see a lag from your video.
Ah,
Yeah, audio.
I messaged Rob to say that you were lagging for. Was it our internet? And because you were lagging for me, I wasn't sure if it was our internet or your internet. So I was gonna leave and rejoin. So I wasn't sure what was happening. But Rob said it was lagging for him a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
not
So,
lag momentarily,
I mean,
but no, it's alright.
yeah, that's fine because
Sometimes
like
my
I
internet,
mean,
like sometimes I freeze out entirely. Like everybody freezes for me sometimes. So yeah.
yeah.
See
So
how we go.
either way, it's okay because like everyone lags just a little bit, but you know, as long as it's all recorded, it can be like stitched together quite nicely. But it's like, but where was we saying? Yeah.
I was gonna bring up. Oh, go for it, Simon.
No, go on.
I was going to bring up the songs because I think they need to be talked about because they were quite problematic. Like they just were all rubbish songs. Like nothing. Like no, actually, that's a lie. The first song about El Dorado was like good, and then it just went downhill from there. There was
Yeah.
nothing like that was catchy, memorable. Honestly,
Oh,
Yeah,
I
so
hate the fact that I agree with you so much. It's such
yeah,
a problem as I watched
If
it
it's
as
any
a kid.
consolation, Simon, I also
lyrics
hate that you
awful.
agree with her so much.
It's
do you know what
it's
was
weird.
bad though, right? Because like when the opening song finished, I was like, oh man, that was joyous. This is gonna be great. and then the second song happened, and I was like, who's this trying to sound
Oh,
like Elton John? And then I googled it, and I was like, what the fuck?
It is Elton, yeah. I think that's without making it sound so weird. I feel like it was easier to watch as a child because essentially he's sing narrating the story. It's like, look, they're on an adventure to guys together, and it's all like, oh, okay, it's very easy for children to get along. But watching it now, it's like, yeah, we're watching it happen. You don't need to sing about it. It's like, yeah, we get it, right? And it's just like, so it's like, no, let's watch
All
the
right,
story. Don't
Elton,
talk.
chill out.
It's okay. Oh, but yeah, it was a bit too much, you know. It was like, okay, if you did it for one or two songs, like when they're having that like spat in the middle when they're like kind of like disagreeing with each other, it's like, oh, it's a bit of a low point, and it's like, oh, okay, sure, you can like sing your emotions, but it's like you're not part of the story. You're like if it was actually Disney, they probably would have done like a ballad, and they'll been like, all right, it'll be like, all right, yeah, they just sing their emotions out. It's like Disney, classic Disney, but
To be
because
fair,
it's not.
well, I was good. Sorry to interrupt. I'll just say my favorite song was the one that Tulio and Miguel sing when they that I thought was the most interesting. Well, maybe
Yeah.
because the animation sequence is just so good, so damn good, and that's the one because it kind of like it fitted the film a bit more.
It's tough to be a god. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not. That wasn't the song I was referencing. I was thinking like when they were. It was like after. It was like afterwards when they're like, where like Miguel is like sitting
The
on
cut and
that.
paste
Well,
Elton
yeah,
John song. Yeah.
yeah. They're like, oh, maybe I will stay here, you know. And it's like, oh no, look, they're having an argument song, and it's like, yeah, I didn't need that. I was like, it was fine without you singing that. We can see what's happening.
Say goodbye.
Do you know what?
Yeah, that's it. That was it. Yeah, that was the song. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Okay.
So
Yeah, it was.
You're so right in what you're saying that even though he only sang songs, Elton John is credited as a narrator.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was I thought that was weird. Yeah. I
But
knew
yeah, that is so strange. That, but yeah, you're right. I think I love Elton John, and I love what he did with Lion King with Tim Rice as well. But you're right, it's like not most of these just don't kind of they're trying to capture the lightning in the bottle, and it doesn't land again. It's like you can't do Lion King 2.0. They should have just focused to do something entirely different.
I feel like if they cut like 2 songs out, it would have been fine, and then they would be like, yeah, it's still okay, it's still good.
You don't need as many songs. You're right. You could have just had 2. You're right.
You didn't
It's
need
still-
any. Fine.
Yeah, the thing for me was like they just kept doing things that like really irk me about any song. So like there was loads of like filler words like surely, and that was really annoying me. And then there was like loads of syllables that they were like cramming in, and I was just like, man, you just need to relax. Like just say less
Yeah, I
shortness, and then that frees up 2 syllables, and you've got 1 to use on this one that you've crammed in elsewhere. Like
I pick up songs quite easily as well, and there was nothing after it. Yeah,
It just
nothing
went on for
worse.
so long as well. Like, there was one point where I was like, they're still singing this.
Yeah, it was the one where they were walking the journey through to El Dorado, which I imagine was probably to emphasise how long the journey was, but it definitely felt longer.
There was one review on Letterboxd that really made me laugh that you just reminded me of though, and it was like the titular road to El Dorado was about 9 minutes of this film.
Everybody's so rude.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I didn't know that so many people would feel like this strongly about the music. I didn't love it by any means, but I'm kind of used to. I guess I'm more picky about music. It takes something to be pretty exceptionally good for me to really appreciate it. So like most music in a lot of movies just kind of flies under the radar for me in terms of just like mediocrity. But yeah, it's funny just to hear how it really rubbed people the wrong way.
Oh man, like music is like the first gateway for most things for me. Like if yeah, it's
I think I love music, so it needs to be really good for me to be like in love with it. Sorry, Ben, what were you saying?
Well, yeah, it's the same thing for me as well as Rob. I think it's just like I think maybe if the score spoke to me when I was little, I'd probably have more of a higher bar for it. So hence why I love The Lion King so much and Aladdin and Hercules is because the musical soundtracks for those are so goddamn good, and I've listened to them so many times since and seen the film so many times. It kind of like seeped into my subconscious, and that probably makes it biased in a sense because I'm used to it, and El Dorado probably went by the wayside. So maybe if I did see it when Alex saw it, as in terms of like at the right type of age, I would have had a connection. But it's
Well,
just
I
like
hate music. I hate music, and that's why I love this film because it's
you love The Lion King.
Oh, this is funny. This is funny because when we start talking about Butch Cassidy, I have something to say about music in that one.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
The exact opposite feeling to the music in Butch Cassidy.
But Ben, I would definitely say that with the music in Hercules, that it was way more catchier because it was designed it to be very
Hercules
Oh,
got the boy.
Whether or not it's obviously a subjective thing, but I do think that Hercules soundtrack is so much more impactful.
Oh gosh.
But it's just because of this. But that's the thing. It's like you think, oh, we're gonna get like Elton John, Tim Rice, Hans Zimmer doing the soundtrack again. It should be great, and technically it should be. They're all ticking all the right boxes, but it doesn't work as well as it did Lion King. And I can't explain why. They have all the ingredients. They just didn't.
Directors, but not the execution.
They suffer more slump, I suppose. But that's not to discredit the film or anything. But maybe it's like as films like other Disney films and other Pixar and DreamWorks films are like, actually, we don't need to make it a musical. We can do something like, obviously, Treasure Planet, or another one that Alec and I like, that doesn't need songs. So why do we need to put them in? We just kind of like just do a straight up forward, a fantasy epic story that kids will love and adults will like. So that's the key. And I think that's when they start to learn about, okay, if it needs to be a musical, make it a full-on musical from the start. If it doesn't need music, musical in that be a musical in that sense. Let's just make it a proper, straight, serious soundtrack score. So it's kind of like El Dorado is in between. It didn't quite know what kind of road to take, pun intended.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
I think that's the weird thing in it, because it's kind of like it's like the whole thing with the Justice League movie, where it's like, you know, if you're making a superhero ensemble film and then like the person making it has to go away for whatever reason, then the best you can do is get the bloke who made the Avengers film, right? And it's like they've kind of done the same thing here, where it's like, if you want to make an animated film with like a banging soundtrack, then the best thing you can do is get Elton John and Tim Rice involved. But it just doesn't work on this for some reason. Like, to the point, like I said, I was going, who is this impersonating Elton John? Like, it's just
It's a shame.
yeah.
Everybody's so rude. I really wondered where you were going with that. I was like, why is he bringing up Justice League again?
It doesn't fill me with joy to do it, man.
Well, I'm scared to ask this, but who wants to do favourite scenes?
I do actually have one. I've got one.
Oh,
Yeah. Same here. I have one.
It's
Kind of funny.
It's the first one where they feign a fight, and there was just a line in it that really made me laugh, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's the one Kenneth Branagh says, and it's basically something along the lines of, our swords will do the talking and they'll be loquacious.
Be loquacious to a fault. I thought you were going to say...
yeah, that was it, loquacious to a fault, yeah.
I thought you were going to say, you fight like my sister. It's like, I fought your sister. That's a compliment.
Yeah, no, I thought that scene was good. To be honest, like I said, the aspect of the film that I really liked was the relationship between those two, and the way that they were interacting with one another. I think those two as a friendship and as two characters, I thought was really nice. It was just everything around them that I didn't get along with. So yeah, I really enjoyed that scene.
You know that there's actually like a bit there that my dad really likes, and it's funny. He's he's gonna go and get another sword, and he goes, "I'll give you the pleasure of a quick and painless death." And he's like, "Enough with that."
I think my favourite scene is probably what we can call it, the football scene, the sports game, and obviously just how that entails and how they kind of like have to kind of like convince everyone and win the game at the same time. And it was quite clever and ingenious how it plays out, because it's like, there's no way this could, and they've used it. You could say it's a Disney trope, using like not quite an anthropomorphic animal, but an animal with like sentience, just having like a sort of sense of what to do and when to do it, kind of situation.
The animal sidekick.
Yeah, and he was wonderful. The little armadillo, he was great, and how they win the game via his help, and yeah, it was just quite inventive, it's just breakneck, and everything's so tense by the minute where the shadow has to cross that line, and they just do it in the nick of time. As we all know they will do it, but it's just fun to see how they do it. That's just a good piece of animation there.
That's a good segue to mine, because mine has something to do with like how animals are portrayed as having some like intelligence and awareness. And it's in near the very beginning, where Miguel is luring the horse with the apple to come help him get them out. And Miguel is like explicitly explaining to the horse, like, describing, can you get us a pry bar? And it looks like this, and it's like, and then Julio is just like, he doesn't understand you. He's not gonna get you the pry bar. And then the horse drops the keys. It was perfect.
Like, he's like, still not a pry bar.
Oh, so good.
That's a big reason why I like Miguel. He's just so, I don't know. He's just so earnest, like, especially because he's a thief as well. Like, just Rachel, dare I ask?
No, I did have a favourite scene. I didn't hate it. I just
Oh,
didn't like it. Mine's probably, we spoke about it already. The end scene, where they are thinking about the fact that they left all the gold behind, and then the horse just shows its like blinged up hooves, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, like that. Bit of maybe laugh. So yeah, that was my favourite scene. Not because it was the end, Alec, but because the horse was blinged up and had managed to get the gold.
Whew, okay, I can do that. So,
Go for it, Simon.
My favorite scene is definitely because something about the bad wizard guy. What's his name?
Jekyll
I
Khan?
was gonna say. Is it? Say again.
Jekyll Khan?
Something. Circle Khan, right? So it's when he's actually doing the summoning the jaguar scene, and it's something really like cheesy, especially when he's making essentially the recipe, and he says something really sly that yes, it calls for something for more body, and it kicks him in, and I was like, I hate that I like that because it seems so like cheesily evil, but it's like I really kind of like the cheesily evilness of it, and it's like I was like, I was like, God damn it, and I was like, why are you like this? Because you're like fun. I was like, why am I like this? Because like then I thought, because you laugh at puns. That's the problem. Yeah. I was like, oh Christ, it's definitely a me thing.
Yeah.
But then obviously with this, there's a scene that I hate that I remember. I feel like it references something else. It's when you see Miguel is actually bleeding, and you see Seiko Khan see the blood, and it's just like, oh shit! They did the Terminator. They did the Iron Man 2 joke, didn't they? They did the if you see God bleed, he's not really a god, and it's all, and that sequence plays in my head, and I was like. It's like a trope that's done quite a lot, but like it's weird because like I'm pretty sure like ancient gods did bleed. There's literally stories about them bleeding and like making like life from blood, but it's like sure that's like a bad trope because it doesn't make sense in the context of any ancient mysterious like religion. So yeah, sure, it's a very overused trope, and it's just like it gets annoying. And I was like,
Yeah, fair.
Has everyone done their favorite scenes?
Alex hasn't, I don't think.
Yeah.
My favourite scene's bloody all of it. It's amazing. I think it's one of the songs actually. It's one of the songs. Sorry everyone. It's tough to be a god. I think that's a banger.
The best one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Although
wrote that song.
yeah. Although I do agree. Actually, you know what? I actually used to play this just for like a short 2-minute segment, and it was the opening song. But I used to fire up my PlayStation and play this just for that because I didn't realise that the soundtrack was freely available on YouTube. But yeah.
Sorry, are we finished your favorite scene, Alex?
Why not? Yeah.
When I looked at my notes to remind myself of my favorite scene, I also wrote down that this wasn't a favorite scene, but it was about this song. Did anybody else think when the Cortez guy, they were continuing on their journey to El Dorado, and they were in this big canyon thing, and there was this like dark, ominous like villain music playing for Cortez. And to me, it sounded really similar to the Shining theme. You know, like when it
yeah.
very beginning.
Oh, I know what you mean. I think I got that too. Is it? Dun, 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 dun,
Yes.
dun.
Yes.
It's the same chord progression.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't notice at the
That must
time,
have
but
been.
yeah, I see it.
They must have done that deliberately.
Yeah, I reckon
Yeah.
that's on purpose. Yeah.
That's two. It's not like 3 notes. It's way more than that. It's good catch. That's a good bit of trivia.
I believe if you want another bit of trivia, I believe there is a animation cell that they stole from Aristocats.
Oh.
How to Be a God, because it's when Altivo is wandering around drunk. I believe that was used in a sequence in Aristocats.
Oh wow! Obviously, I knew Disney would do it because they've done it for like decades because it's Disney. But I'm surprised they could get away with doing it from a Disney film to a DreamWorks film. Actually, even if they are the same numbers.
Really,
Wait,
really bothered me.
Is that because didn't somebody say that this was around the time where a lot of Disney animators came over to DreamWorks?
Yeah, like that age period.
It was true, but it's just like I didn't think legally they could do it. But I guess maybe they clocked it.
I guess you can't copyright Frou gets drunk at a party animation cell.
No, maybe not.
That's one of ours.
But usually it's kind of like if it's a piece of artwork and it's usually got a watermark on each cell anyway, it would be traced back. But I suppose if they disguise it by reanimating a completely different character on top of it, and all they're using is the same movement and the same sort of fluidity of the animation style, I suppose they can get with it. I suppose if it was if it was like, I don't know, one of the characters from Aristocats blatantly put into it, then there'd be trouble. But the fact they're just using the movement.
I suppose the thing is as well, like it's quite a recent thing where it's written into a lot of like artist contracts that whatever they make and whatever they create isn't their own property and it's the property of the studio. So maybe this was just before then and like everyone was just keeping everything that they made for themselves.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'd like to think that.
Intéressant. Right. Well, should we talk about Butch Cassidy now?
Yay!
Since everybody loves that one a lot.
What a film. I fucking loved it.
Did everyone else feel the same way?
I very much enjoyed it. Yeah. And before, and this is largely due to Ben and now also Film Club. Before, not too long ago, I kind of avoided older movies. I didn't really fully appreciate them. And now I'm learning I was wrong. I judged too quickly. I can't write off something just because it's old. Yeah, I like this way more than I thought I would, which happens a lot these days. Yeah, it was just like, and the way it was done, I could obviously clearly tell it was like a movie that was really worked on hard, like, and done so well in the way, like, I guess, and it's hard for me to describe exactly how, I mean, why, like, with the way it was like shot, I just thought it was like, especially at the beginning, I just noticed like how much artistry was put into it. And the acting was fantastic. The characters were really interesting, and the overall story was intriguing and kept me going. Except I got a little bit. For me, in my experience, I often have a problem like getting kind of like a little bored in the middle of a film. I don't know if that's a me thing or if just is like, I don't know. It kind of dragged on a little bit. I think it was mostly the montage when they were like traveling from the US to Bolivia. I think that stretched on a little long for me. There were some parts, like, overall it just felt like so modern to me. Like, I didn't feel like I was watching a movie from 1969, which was just like, I really like, I do love modern films the most, no matter, like, that's just how I that's just what my taste is like. So I really appreciated that. There were some times where it did feel very dated all of the sudden. I did, and that was largely due to like a couple of the music choices. It was the Raindrops song when he was doing the whole bicycle riding around montage. And then there was this really cheesy song that was like soon after, and I can't remember how it went. And it was just like there was a couple of moments that kind of really took me out of the overall film. I felt like they were kind of just like not really jiving and meshing well with the rest of the movie. But overall, I just had such a great time with it. I think I just really, yeah, the acting and the characters, and I got emotional at the end. And you know, I think the ending was just so well done, and so yeah, I really, really appreciated the opportunity to see this fantastic pick. So yeah, that's my.
I'm eternally grateful that the editor went, we're not going to show you the consequences of what happened at the end there. We'll just leave it there. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah, because like it was a bit of like a lighter hand with like all of this, a more subtle, you know. Yeah, they didn't have to get all gruesome and dark and heavy with it. And it still had full impact for me. You know, I was still sad. That's how it ended for them. So yeah, that's more or less. Oh, and I do have to say that I was watching it with my mom, and my mom had said that they kind of reminded her how they paired up together, George Clooney and Brad Pitt, particularly in like Ocean's 11 and movies like that. And I could kind of see that. And it was humorous. They like how they interacted together. Like I was like laughing and really enjoying them. So just thought I'd throw that out too.
Yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised by it, man, because it's like, it's one of those films where it's such a classic that it's always on your watch list and you never get around to it. And yeah, I think it's one of those. Like, my uncle Brian, when I was a kid, he always used to say like, "Oh, this is a film you should really watch." And like when I was getting into films, he was always like, "Oh yeah, you've got to like make sure that you watch this classic kind of thing." And yeah, I suppose because it has got like that kind of reputation, it's sort of one of those things where you think like, oh, well, it's always going to be there, so I'll get around to it at some point, kind of thing. And I think I went into it with the impression that it was going to be like similar to films like Magnificent Seven and like that kind of western in tone. And so how funny it was just completely caught me off guard, and I just I loved it. Like I think the scene with the ball, like it was just. Oh yeah, it was the zoom on the bull's eye. It was just like, it was so stupid. I just thought it was so funny, and there were so many lines that what's his name, the guy from Cool Hand Luke,
Paul
Paul Newman.
Newman, yeah.
Butch Cassidy.
There were so many lines he was saying where I was going like, that's so like, it's like it's stupid humor, but it's like. It's so cleverly written to be stupid humour. Yeah, I just love that kind of thing. I really didn't expect it, but yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too, and I saw it when I was quite young, so I don't think I remember appreciating it as much as I do now. Like I maybe saw it when I was too young to really kind of get it. And yeah, I had a good time then, but I had a better time now just because I could see what they were doing. What was so interesting about how different it was for the films of its time and the films that came before as well. Because westerns were kind of like serious, like Magnificent Seven, that was straight up fantasy films, and this kind of was like, we told this in a very light touch, like Corey mentioned. It's just going to be kind of like whimsical and silly, but also have this mythicism about it. This kind of like building the narrative around that these two heroes, where they've kind of like embracing the nostalgia, like obviously, which was kind of like very well done in terms of how they represented the old-fashioned, timey nostalgia of the old West with the sepia photographs in the beginning and the end, and kind of like this bygone age that's evolving and changing into this new era into the 1800s to the 1900s, and this was a kind of like crossroads of the old West, and they're Butch and Sundance are kind of like the last remnants of that era, and it's kind of like they're telling the story from their eyes in the kind of mythological kind of like viewpoint where it's kind of like, yeah, we're gonna tell it by how they'd like their story to be told themselves, and obviously they portrayed it in a really great light. They're very, they're just, what's the word? They're really enduring. They're just lovable rogues. They're outlaws, but they're still lovable, and that was the key part to making it work. Because if they were betrayed anything more, sympathise with them, be interested in their story and where their narrative would take them, and how they ended up, and that was kind of the whole thing about it. It's just kind of like let's kind of like empathize these and anti-heroes. They're not really villains. They're not really heroes, but they're kind of just like these legends, and they're larger than life. And obviously, Paul Newman and Rob Redford portray them so well for their excellent chemistry and their like tenacity, and also kind of like their swift, sharp humor. That was kind of like, yeah, they were the perfect two people to kind of do this right, because anything more would have been too much, and anything less wouldn't have made it funny. And many modern films nowadays kind of don't have the balance right. And this film kind of has the balance of just being spot on perfect, of being like they know when to have the gags come in to like lift the tension and then take them away to make it tense again. And they just drop this sort of like nuggets of humor here and there when it's needed without over egging it. And I thought that's really smart writing and really clever, and this depth of hand that isn't often seen in films these days. And it's very, also the subtleness of how the story is told is like it starts off very silly, more than the second half. Like the first half is very a bit more camp, not in a bad way, but kind of a bit bloodless and fake. But as it goes on, the consequences of the actions gets a bit more a bit more darker and a bit more violent, and then at the end, it kind of comes down to it. It's like, yeah, these guys are trying to outrun death, and that's kind of the whole theme of it, is that they've got this kind of like a wraith, this thing in the background chasing them, metaphorically or otherwise, and they can't escape it, and that is their fate, that is their destiny to die. And that's kind of like the mythological wisdom about this story, is that they kind of had this like destiny where they're on borrowed time. They're living on borrowed time kind of thing, but they're kind of living life to the fullest and at the moment, and they're trying to learn and try and change their ways, trying to like, especially in the second half, to be like, yeah, let's turn a new leaf. Let's forget about Robin Banks for a minute. Let's try and go straight. And in the end of the day, it still catches up to them. No matter what they do, they're still destined to end the way they did. But I think that's kind of like what's good about it. It's just this like they're representing these two characters in such a legendary kind of like I think it's just how they told the story as well as how they performed it. It just sticks to me. It's just it embraces the old and the new, while we're kind of like just being kind of like a film of its time that stands in its time as well. So yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more I do appreciate it, and the more we'll talk about it in the call. I'll speak more that I think is kind of like and needs to be kind of like what's the word? Forgetting things, but yeah, that's it's good basically. That's what I'm saying.
I got tipped off by the I got tipped off as to like what kind of tone it might be because of you, Ben. Because on the opening credits, when it said it was directed by George Roy, it's really hard to pronounce those three words together.
Oh.
George Roy Hall. When I saw it was directed by him, I was like, oh shit, that's one of your favourite films.
That's George Royal.
Wait, hang on a sec. I'm forgetting who.
He also directed The World According to Garp.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, of course. And I was thinking of another one. Butch Cassidy. 1 second. I did. It's just gone out of my head. What the?
I thought you meant, oh yeah, he did another one. It's called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I was like, yeah, he did.
Sorry, if my memory was bloody better, I'd be like, oh yeah, he did this, he did that, and he did the Sting. That was another good film. But yeah, World According to God, that's on my list for next year.
Oh, is it?
Spoilers. But yeah, he's a very niche director, but he's kind of got this quirky style that kind of like he just knows how to get the best performances out of his actors and just kind of like tell these larger than life stories about people that are very, very off the wall kind of thing. So that's why I like this film and the others.
I just looked at his Letterboxd profile, and there's no way that Troy McClure wasn't designed based on him.
Yeah, of all the references you said before, it's just like it's Troy McClure. He's all the hallmarks of
Oh man, I can't get the picture. And I'm gonna.
yeah, even the stills of him kind of look like Troy McClure.
Yeah.
Couple of Simpsons, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed we are. But that's what's so good about this film as well is that I think it's a kind of like a template of the buddy movie before they became huge and hit like obviously Lethal Weapon is like a benchmark classic for the modern era, but this kind of was even before that, and it kind of like sets the tone and the pace and how to do a buddy movie well and make it kind of like a dual hander where both characters have this same sort of like parallel journey and parallel relevance and importance to the story. And this exactly does that, where it's kind of like it makes them what they quip and they tell jokes, but they're endearing at the same time, and they're not annoying. It's like, as Emmanuel would say, like some characters that are either jokey or too stupid, that will be annoying, and it's kind of like it's a really another thing. It's a hard balance I mentioned before to get that right.
He's not watched this yet, so
He may find it annoying. You never know. So we'll see. He'll be like, "Oh yeah, that Butch Cassidy is annoying."
That was really good timing, Ben, because you said he may find it annoying just as I pulled this out of my box.
Wait, it's blurry. What's it saying?
It says,
Go
get
what?
out.
Get out. Oh.
But yeah, I think something that I really appreciated with it. Oh, actually, no, not everyone said their bit yet, have they?
Yeah, Rob. Wait.
Sorry.
Yeah, I really liked it. I didn't know what to expect. I guess I kind of knew it was perhaps kind of like a cowboy kind of western. And I'd grown up watching Magnificent Seven a lot with my granddad and my dad. The Yul Brynner guy. I can't remember what his name is.
Yul Brynner was a good part of your childhood.
Yeah, good old.
Yeah, he really was. Can't remember the other guy, but the Yul Brynner version. And I wouldn't really go out of my way to watch like a western. I think that Magnificent Seven obviously is a film that I kind of I feel fondly towards, I guess, because of the sentimental value. So I kind of did come in with more of an open mind than maybe I would have if I hadn't watched Magnificent Seven, if that kind of makes sense. But I kind of agree with what Ben said. I think what was quite nice about it and kind of helped me stay engaged and interested by it was the humour and the use of humour. Like it was just the right amount of balance, I guess. It could have very easily have gone kind of the other way, kind of being too much, but I think it kind of hit the right notes for me to kind of find it humorous and to enjoy it. Even the bit at the beginning where he's gone back to his original gang in the Hole in the Wall, and obviously the guy's reading the newspaper, and then the other guy, what does he say to him? I can't remember, but he's like, I can't remember what he says, but it's like, thank you for telling me that. I would have gone ahead without you. I can't. Rob, do you remember what the line was? It really made us laugh. What was it? When the guy was like, he said something, but I can't remember what it was, and that was annoying me because it did make me laugh at the time. I don't know if anyone else can remember. It was like, thank you for that bit of information. I wouldn't have been able to have like gone ahead or something without it. He's being super sarcastic at the very beginning when he's about to fight the guy.
Oh, was that when the news
Enough,
guy insisted on reading the whole, like kept on reading
It's
until
that bit, but it's not the news guy, it's the other guy, and I can't remember exactly what he says. Or it's by the train bit. I can't remember which bit it is, but it's around that time. But anyway, it was a line. It just was very much like my kind of like sense of humour. So I really did like it. Kind of caught me straight away. I really appreciated the kind of the thick sarcasm, and I like the storyline. I like the idea of a kind of like, will they or won't they, kind of, not in that sense, but will they or won't they like
Kiss.
get themselves together? Will they really be able to continue and sustain this, or actually do they want to try and go go along a kind of a better path, or kind of kind of move away from robbery? So I kind of like that storyline. I like the introduction of Etta Place. I thought that was it kind of, I was reading up alongside it the actual kind of the like about the real people that it kind of evolved, and also she actually was more of a companion with them, like quite long term, actually, which I thought was quite interesting, kind of having her kind of involved in a lot of their robberies and crimes moving forward. I just enjoyed it. I think it just kind of hit the right notes. I really loved the music as well, throughout all of it. I like the raindrops bit, and there's also another bit in the middle. I can't remember which bit it was, Rob. Where was the bit that we really like? Oh, I said I really like the music here.
Oh,
I can't remember which part.
No, it was that bit, wasn't it? Wasn't it the?
No, it was the raindrops, and then there was like I think an instrumental part.
Oh, was it like the main sequence where they're robbing banks with the three of them, and it's the a cappella jazz sequence?
No, I think it's before, where they're travelling kind of through the scene or the landscape and trying to escape the posse. I think, I can't remember what it was. If it was words, I don't think it was. But I thought that was a really kind of like nice bit of the movie, I guess. And I was going to say, I like the dynamic between them, and I don't know. I guess it was quite interesting kind of seeing the relationship between them, and having watched El Dorado this morning. I thought the dynamic and kind of the differences in their personalities, but then kind of what they brought together was done really well. I thought the characterization was really great, and I think they both played their parts really well. Overall, I just really enjoyed it much more than I think I thought I would. I thought it was a really great pick, and I'd be interested in like finding out. Well, I'm curious now to kind of go on and read a bit more about kind of them in real life and kind of the actual true story behind it, but also I think kind of a bit like what Corey said, a bit more kind of open maybe to other kind of Western films, and kind of giving that a bit more of a chance than maybe I normally kind of would have done. So I also think that's quite a good thing if you've been able to sway me in that sense, Alex. So good job.
Oh, Dad will be very happy.
Simon, do you want to go next?
Sure. This again, I feel like I'm also one of the people who didn't watch this film beforehand, and as it could, I was gonna say, oh, alright, we have a buddy cop film, but not really cops.
CSI El Dorado.
No, yeah, but like, in all seriousness, this film was like funnier than I expected it to be, and it was like, oh yes, because they argue with each other, but in like actual like proper arguments, like unlike El Dorado where it's like the fake fighting. This was like, no, I can't do that. Why? Why can't you fucking do that? Because I can't swim. Oh, and it's just like, it's like the way that he said it, and it was like, well, because he pretty much wanted to say, well, there's no place to learn like the present. And it's like, well, fucking alright, Jesus. But it's like, seeing the way that the characters work, they were acting together, made sense. Even with with like when they still had their like hole in the wall gang, and like the guy was like, oh, he's got a fight to do. It's like, just don't kill him. And it's like, it's all of that was fine. There was the situation with Etna. I was thinking Etna, but Etta, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure because this came out in 1969, right? So this is it's a fairly old film. I feel like the relationship between those three is a very, I can't know if it's to say modern take, because it seems a bit frontal-ish, I guess is probably the right word. I don't know if that's how I want to say it, because it seems like the dynamics with each other is a bit, not sure if that's what they were going for, but that's what it felt like, looking at it from like a very modern perspective. And I was like, it seems very open about it, but I don't know if that's what as I was saying, I don't know if that's what they were going for. But because it's like during that time period, it was like, yes, no, I don't. Essentially, I'm saying is it has a very modern glaze on it, and even though it's quite an old film, and certain things that are like very like, how do you say, very like, it's just like all the sort of like it's certain like race relation parts, and like I don't know, there's certain like parts they can take that didn't age as well, which can be kind of racist, but it's like it's like, I feel like that might have been because of the time period that it was, and I don't know if that's a thing on the time period of when the film is set, or like literally when the time period of the people who filmed it at that time as well. So it's like, there's like there's a few bits that are like takes away from the film, but generally speaking, still, even though there are bits that are a bit like, let's say, rough, it's just generally a generally quite enjoyable like film to watch, and it's like, I'm sad I didn't watch this sort of like cowboy film before, and it's like this is a pretty good cowboy film. I mean, like, I've heard of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, but I didn't know of them, if you know what I mean. So I was like, oh, this is like an interesting see how the story of this portrayal of the story is. It's quite interesting. It was a good take on it, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think what I really liked about it was just how quickly it established everything. So like the scene where Butch Cassidy gets challenged by the bigger guy, and you've got that whole thing about how they were like, oh, you said anyone could challenge you, and he's like, yeah, I didn't think anyone would, and then it's the whole thing about whether it's going to be a knife fight or a gun fight, and like obviously like the kind of the established sort of setup of those kind of challenges is that the person who wins is the one who's left alive, and I thought it was a really way of sort of establishing who he is as a person, that he doesn't kill the other guy, he just knocks him out. And I really like I really like the bit before and the bit after where he's basically where they're like where they say to Sundance, like, if he's dead, you can hang around with us still, kind of thing. And then he says, like, if I die, I want you to kill them for me, kind of thing. I thought that was really nice. And then the bit afterwards, I fucking cracked up. I couldn't stop laughing. When is it Flatnose? When he's like, oh, I was in your corner all along, and he's like, oh, that sustained me in my time of trouble. It was such a good line. Yeah, that whole sequence I thought was really nice. But yeah, like I said, it was a really nice way of like characterizing everyone in it. I thought it was so cleverly written from that point of view. And then all of the payoffs later on, where you realise that although they're sort of like so close as a friendship, and they've obviously done a lot of work together and all of that kind of stuff, like, like one doesn't know that the other can't swim, and the other doesn't know that the other's never shot a gun, and it's like all things like that. It's just I think it's so cleverly put together. I really, really, really appreciated it.
Hmm. That did like that first scene where Butch is challenged. That really did give me an idea of like what kind of guy he was, because while he was pretty smart about it, and yeah, he didn't want to kill that other guy. The fact that like didn't he get ahead by like kicking that guy in the crotch?
Oh, that was
Like
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
I thought I thought that was so cleverly written. Where he's just like, "Oh, let's establish the rules," and the other
yeah,
guy's
yeah.
like, "What? There are no rules." So he just punts him in the dick.
Yeah, this is it. What the rules? Yeah. When you, one,
No
two,
one
three,
ever.
go. You say 1, 2, 3, go. I say 1, 2, go. 1, 2, 3, go. And it's like, yeah, that's so smart. Both of them were so like sharp and on it at that point.
No one ever expects the dick kick.
Yeah, I was really rooting for you, Butch.
That sustained me in my time of trouble.
Yeah. What I really liked about this and what was it unexpected, I didn't exactly know what I was going into with this one. I had like a general idea. But yeah, I liked how the characters were just so, for like an old Western, if they were just like so, like not your typical stereotypical like cowboy dudes, you know, they were like flawed and relatable, and the humor really landed well with me a lot. Like I laughed out loud a lot during this. So yeah, that
That's
was
so
really
true. That's because the thing for me is like because we'd watched Road to El Dorado this morning, and obviously I came out of it sort of feeling the way I did about like the context of it all. And then while we were watching this, like for the first like hour, I was like, "Oh, I'm having such a good time! Like this is such a good film." And then when they went to Bolivia, I was like, "Please don't ruin it." And then
Oh look, indigenous people.
I could not have been like more pleasantly surprised again. Like the whole sequence of them in Bolivia, like trying to learn the language and just like bumbling through. I thought it was so clever and so good.
yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like
That's underrated.
Edda teaching them like they're in a room full of Spanish speaking people and
Yeah.
they're like learning how to say in Spanish like raise your hands, like where's the safe, like so silly.
Yeah, even the sequence when they're in back at home and before they go to bed and they're in just two separate rooms and they're just like, "Oh, Butch, well, how do you say so and so?" And he's just like, and he just fluently just says it by reading his little piece of paper, and he's just like, "Oh wow, that was so good."
I think
And
it's
then
so funny that he's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
he's
then
like,
when he's actually got to do it, like in the bank, like Sundance is the one he's like, they've already
Exactly.
put their hands up, they're already up against the
It's
wall,
what he said.
and he's like, you fucking do it then.
Yeah.
Even that bit before that, though, like, it's literally the same sequence, but it's when he's looking at the note and he's like, Reba.
He's like, yeah, those moments are great. And they kind of like, yeah, they those parts at the end is like it just it gives you the sense they're trying to like make the best of a bad situation, so to speak, and it's only after that it's like, oh, actually we can't keep this up anymore, because it's kind of the paranoia still sets them in because he sees the man in the straw hat, and obviously Butch is it Butch that thinks it's the guy that's chasing them. And it's just like, even if it wasn't him, he's still convinced it is. And it's like, yeah, we need to go straight. We need to get jobs and that. So, and even the funny side of it, of them when they get jobs, they get a job at like being the guards for the payroll. And it's just how that happens. It's like, if any other characters, if they were written in a way, or if they're based on the characters that were really horrible, that they would have shot him when they got the payroll and went off. And maybe that's a version of did happen, where the two real Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid did shoot the man who's their employer and run off with money. But instead, it's this big thing where it's kind of like, yeah, they get the banditos go after them and they kill their boss, and then they have to do this decoy thing, and then they eventually shoot him. So it's so interesting how it's all from their perspective, and it kind of like makes them. in such a good light, and that's the first time I think they actually probably kill someone as well, or they kill people at all. And Sundance Kid is obviously he's such a good shot, but that's the first time where they both literally take people out, and I think that's the line where they're no going back from that moment on, and they know that's once they've crossed that, that's it. But before they were just like mugging off the kind of right people, they're kind of Robin Hood types, where they kind of are stealing from the rich, the people that would miss the money, and that's how they kind of you had so much endearment to them because they were kind of going after the people that kind of deserved it in a way, and it was only to the end that it's like it changes.
Yeah, that was hard to, that the complexity of these characters. That was, I didn't love how they couldn't just it's realistic, like that they couldn't just change entirely their lifestyle just like on a dime.
Yeah, in Bolivia they could have just gone straight there.
But it's just like it just makes me wish, because like they did, they were kind of conflicted. Like they wanted to enjoy their life and do what they love to do, which is be criminals. But they also realized like they were trying to run away. They were trying to preserve their lives. And like if only they had just like decided to go straight sooner, it would have worked out differently, I think. Because they'd successfully got away quite easily. I guess that's a sign of the times. Like back then, it was easier to leave the country when you're a big criminal like that. But yeah, that's kind of adds to the sadness of it all. But what really just like they're just like friendship and like how they interacted with each other just like was really wholesome.
Yeah.
I think my favourite bit there is when they come back from the bike ride and Sundance is like, "Fuck you doing?" and he's like, "Stealing your woman," and he's like, "Take it." Like, just stuff like that. I was just like, wow, these guys are like, God, these guys are so close. Like,
that was interesting. Like I thought they were like when he said, "I'm stealing your woman," I'm like, okay, you're being honest at least, because I did think that they were getting a little cozy for what the situation was.
Yeah, that's why it's a bit like a modern look at it. I was like, oh, are they like a throuple? Is this like a thing that they just like doing? Is it a bit? It was very odd because afterwards when he said that he was like, I'm done with her, take her, and everyone was like, okay, that's a bit rude, but like fucking okay, maybe that's what they're into. It's like, I ain't judging, but like,
I think I might have taken it a bit literally. So.
Yeah.
And did anybody notice like when they were first being tracked like hard by that big specialized group had gotten together, the skilled group, to track them and kill them. And then Etta thought that they were dead because that was what was in the paper. And then when they come and they survive and they come to Etta goes and hugs them both at the same time, which is like goes to show like what kind of like relationship they all have, I think.
I think I just while you guys are talking about that, I think I might have remembered the bit that made you laugh, Rachel. Was it the bit where they were where it was in the paper about? Oh, was it in the paper? It was when they found out.
No,
about,
I think it was the bit that you said.
Huh?
I think it was the bit that you said where he was like, "I was with you all along."
When did I say that?
When you were talking at the beginning, where the guy says, "Flat nose," says, "Oh, I was with you all along."
I thought you were talking about the bit later on. I thought you were talking about the bit where they find out that the guy who runs the railways has spent like more money than they robbed off of him for security, and then he's like, "Oh, if he'd have given me that money, I would have stopped robbing him."
That was funny.
There's so many.
That is a great one.
Actually, on the subject where we were talking about like the love triangle, I thought there was a lot of interesting and very like subtle restraint on that part of the story, because many other modern films would kind of like make that a huge big deal of the plot. They'd be like, yeah, Butch and Sundance are gonna be fighting over this woman. It's going to be like they're at each other's throats. One of them's going to betray one of them at the end of the story, and they're going to run off with the girl, kind of thing. And I'm so glad they didn't do that, because it kind of shows you that obviously there's a lot of history with the three of them, and kind of like maybe there was like romantic feelings that she had, Etta had, for Butch at one point, but she realized, no, I like what we have. We just got this great deep bond. It's not physical. It's just like, I just love this guy, and she found more of a physical and more romantic relationship with Sundance, and I feel that, and it was kind of like there's a lot of melancholy in that sequence where they're riding the bike to the Raindrop song. Like a story, something that could have been kind of a relationship they could have had, but both of them realized, look, we kind of like what we have now, we ruin it. That's what we're gonna be, and it's quite sad, but at the same time, they all kind of are happy with it, at least on the surface. So there's so much there that's kind of like unexplained, but I think it's deliberate, that you don't know purposefully, because it kind of adds to the mystery of how they met and how they are friends, and it shows you their deep respect with one another. With Butch has the Sundance, and how both of them have to Etta to place, because it's kind of like, yeah, there's so much trust and so much level of trust that they have with one another, that is quite thought provoking and quite restrained. So yeah, that's why I did like that part.
I think that's one of the things that I do love about it, where like they kind of are talking about. Do you think that do you think that if we met each other first, then we'd be dating? But it's just like a case of she just met Sundance first, and that was it. And it's like it's one of it kind of ties back to what I was saying about before about El Dorado being like the kid story, and this being the adult story of kind of like what happens when like two best mates like fancy the same girl and everything. And it's like in El Dorado, it's kind of like a bit of a sore point, but like for Butch, it's kind of something that he's kind of grown to accept, and it's like it's not something he's like completely happy about, but he kind of has found a way to love her in his own way, and but like he respects Sundance too much to jeopardize it, and like he likes what they have as well. Like I think there's a couple of shots where like he's looking at him and he's going like, but then like in a later shot he looks a lot more at peace with it, and it's like that's I think that's kind of stuff that I really appreciate with this one. Um, and yeah, I like that they're kind of at a point where they joke about it, and it's not, but like well, there's a similarity between them that I really do like, and it's when um it's in El Dorado, it's when Chell's like, oh, you don't want me to want to come to Spain with you, and he's like, I want you to want what you want, and it kind of it's something that he didn't know he was gonna say until he said it, kind of thing, which is another point for Tulio, I think. But like the equivalent scene in this one is when she's like, I'm gonna go. I can't watch you guys die. I'm gonna go now. And she says it to Sundance, and Sundance goes like, "Yep, whatever you want." And then they say it to Butch, and then Butch goes, "Yep, whatever she wants." And he just looked like he's visibly upset at that, but it's kind of like this unspoken thing of yeah, you have to bow out when you want to bow out.
Yeah, choice of language in that scene's really powerful too, because he's just talking about, oh yeah, I'll sew your socks, I'll stitch your wounds, but I won't want to see you die. I'd rather miss that scene if you don't mind. So it's just quite sad, and kind of like, yeah, she doesn't want to have that part of the story of them in her head, the death of them. She just wants to remember them as they are right then and there, and she just like, yeah, you do die. I just don't want to know about it. So it's quite poetic.
And I like that the film sort of like extended that courtesy to us as well. Like it's
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the ending is so clever because it's kind of like the way it ends on like the sepia toned Polaroid picture photograph. It just shows you that this is how you to remember them as this picture on the doing what they did best, and it's them being like brothers in arms going down fighting, and it's again it's a lot of restraint in using that, and it eliminates like the ambiguous. It eliminates the sadness of the ending, but it remains ambiguous as well because it's like you don't definitively see them die, but even though all logical points in your head or things in your head telling you that yeah they're gonna die in this hail of bullets, but they're not showing you that, and it's kind of like you've got this glimmer of hope, this kind of like image of them of just going out, finding out some sort of like loophole of escaping, and then riding off into the sunset. That's kind of like what the idea you want to have deep in your heart, but that obviously doesn't happen. But it's kind of like if you've got that tiny glimmer of hope, that tiny, tiny, tiny bit of hope, it gives it this larger than life quality that makes the story stand in time for that reason.
Yeah, I think you've seen as like enough of them kind of escaping situations and kind of you kind of hope, yeah, like you say, that maybe there's a chance that somehow, I don't know, they get out of that alive in a way. So yeah, I really liked the ending. I thought that was quite appropriate and kind of a good way to finish.
Yeah, that's what makes a film really great is how they choose what to lead you up to thinking and realizing, and then what they don't show you, because you could figure the rest out for yourself. It was really well done. That's so sad. I just got sad all over again when when Edda is telling them that she's gonna leave, and then you figure out why she didn't want to see them die. It's so sad. And they didn't show. They just showed her telling them that she was gonna leave. They didn't show her actually like separating and going her way. Just a good choice.
Just on the going back to the Etta relationships and stuff, I think it was interesting that you kind of only saw like there were two very different relationships though. The relationship she had with Sundance and the relationship she had with Butch were very different, just in terms of like tone and dynamic. It was a lot more kind of like romanticized and kind of like sweet with Butch in a way that with Sundance it kind of wasn't depicted in that way. So I know it wasn't the focus of it, but I did kind of come away thinking, well, was that actually who she kind of maybe should have been with or wanted to be with? But maybe there's like an edge to Sundance, and I think I still even think between Butch and Sundance that it's almost like there's an unpredictability of maybe Sundance and him being what's the word, better gunsman, if that's the word. I think I don't know, I kind of think that whole kind of like montage or scene. Say it again, Alec.
No, I just said person of gun.
Person of gun. I just think the whole kind of with the music and just the kind of like you said, kind of riding on the front of the bike, it was all kind of quite like I don't know, Queen wasn't it? And so I just kind of wonder if maybe the kind of the threat of Sundance wasn't kind of worth it to Butch in a way. It's actually kind of better to have him on side than not on side and just accept, like Ben said, the kind of dynamic and relationship that they could have as a trio, as a friend of hers. But I just thought there was a kind of more of a tenderness to his approach with her and relationship with her than you saw with Sundance, I think.
I think that's a nice thing. They both kind of loved her in their own ways.
Their own ways, yeah. Exactly. She wasn't exploited like Cheltenham. I'm joking. Yeah.
I kind of forgot how Etta came into the story, and so like when he comes in and he's just like he's a bit lechy with her. I was like, hold on a minute, I don't remember this. And then and she's like, why are you always so fucking late all the time? And I was like, oh yes, okay, cool.
Thank God.
Yeah,
Going on rapidly.
Even that though,
Oh,
I think
you
it's such a credit to it because like when it was happening, so Rachel was like, "Oh, does he know her?" And I was like, "Well, it's not clear yet." But by that point, the film had already built up enough credit with me where I was going like, "No, there's going to be a payoff to this. Like, it's this isn't who he is."
Like, he was so creepy though. Like him just sitting in that corner in the room in the dark. Goes, I've been expecting you. And I was like, it's like, what the fuck is with this guy? And it's like, is this the character that is he supposed to be the good guy? Is he the guy we're waiting for? I was just like, what's this? And afterwards, I was waiting for you for how fucking long? I was like, oh, it's just a kink. Okay.
Just foreplay.
Really had us that movie really had me going. Like they did that on purpose because she was really role playing, I guess you would say now, is like because she was like trying to like hide herself still when she really was like that really. I did get a bit of a pre-warning that I would be so confused for a second and then not be and then feel better later. But yeah, that I was still like, what is happening? Yeah.
Mm.
It is good. Have we done favourite scenes? I feel like we might have touched on.
No, we haven't yet. Let's do them.
Well, favourite scene then. Let's go.
You could probably like roll a dice and pick one for me. Like it's just there's so many. Like the one at the start that I mentioned with the line that I really liked is one of them. I really I really loved both of the scenes where they Oh, actually, maybe this is a favourite scene then. Actually, because now that I'm thinking about it, so the two scenes where they robbed the train and. It reminded me a little bit of that like urban legend that goes around about the IRA where they used to phone an ambulance to tell the ambulance service that they were about to bomb a location so that they could be on their way, kind of thing. It was like that kind of thing where they were kind of like they were robbing this guy and they were doing such a horrible thing, but they were acting towards him so nicely. And I just really liked the setup of the two scenes where they robbed him and the way that the second one played out as if it was like old friends visiting him, even though they were blowing up his carriage and robbing him again. But the bit that I really liked was, so when he's saying like, oh, it's not my money, like it's if it was my money, then there's nobody I'd rather have steal it than you, kind of thing. I really like the payoff later on where they're trying to go straight and they're kind of like they're sort of like holding up the bandits and they're trying to explain that like they're not doing it for their own good, they're doing it because it's not their money. Yeah, I think that's maybe my favourite scene because I think that's a really nice kind of it's a nice summary of like how it surprised me in the second half once they got to Bolivia. And where it sort of ended up with them being on the back foot, and I think that's maybe one of my favourite aspects of the film, so maybe that's my favourite scene.
My favorite scene is when they're just squeaking away from that group of people that were tracking them, and they are bickering and deciding like, do they stay and shoot it out or do they jump? And we figure out that he can't swim, and then they decide they just have to jump. And one of them is just like, "Oh shit!" before they fall in, and then they're both like bickering, like let go of me, you're drowning me, and they're just like almost dying, but they're like bickering all the way down the like river, and it was just really funny. I just thought that really cracked me up. So that was one of my favorites.
Yeah, those two great moments like that was like, I can't swim. That's a hell of a time you're telling me. And then obviously there's another payoff later where it's like, I've never shot a gun before. And it's like, no, he told me that. And it's like, oh, it's just got great moments of just like the two of them just like going back and forth. So like Rob, I've got loads of favourite moments. One bit I really did like for different was obviously in the middle act where they're being pursued by like the posse of like the Dracula. I can't remember his name. What is he's called? Is Voldemort. Sounds like Lord but it's not. It sounds like that, and
Lord
I thought
Voldemort.
that how they built this kind of like thing up, where you never see them, you never see the antagonists at all in this film, really, to be fair, and they have this like of again this mythic quality about it, and you just see it from their perspective, from long angle shots, and you have this this like underlining tension to it all of them being tracked and followed by this thing you can't really see, but it's always there, and it's just and despite them bickering and saying, "Yeah, who the hell, who are those guys?" It's just that great moment where he's repeating it, but it's still kind of unsettling for both of them and the audience because you don't know they're going to face because they just no matter what they do, no matter where they go, they're still being followed. And I thought that was just a great technique that sort of goes right to the end, even if they have that bit where they go to New York and then Panama, and it still kind of like irks at them despite all that, and they know deep down that no matter what they do, the law or death is going to follow them. So I thought that was a good first moment where they just utilized that in such a good way of both direction and acting, and writing as well.
I started to laugh every time somebody said, "Who are those guys?" I wanted to keep count.
My favorite scene was probably just the learning of the Spanish when obviously she knocks on the wall and he obviously picks it out of his hand, and then obviously when you see him do the exact same in the bank robbery because he doesn't have the words to explain himself. I thought that was great. It reminded me of being with Rob on holiday.
Donde Esther.
I guess so.
I think like there's probably another one that should have an honourable mention, and it's the last conversation where Butch is like, "Oh, I should be the one that goes out there because I can't cover you."
Yeah, that's quite poignant. Even before that, where they're just talking about, oh yeah, Australia. I thought you wanted to know this, but I know it was itching you to find out. We wanted Australia, and they just reel off the reasons why, and that was quite a good final funny moment as well. Just talking about a what if, and yeah, it's just that little moment of like not just like positivity, but hope that they have to somewhere they can aspire to go, even though they both know they're gonna just because obviously the wounds they had were quite terminal, and
That was such a bittersweet scene. And one of my favorite parts of that scene was when they're first dragging themselves in. At that point, I was feeling pretty low. I was seeing, the writing on the wall, obviously. But one of the first things that one of them says was, I guess it had to be Butch. He was like, "You call that cover?"
What was the line when they were eating and then what did they say about the restaurant or the food? It makes again. I can't remember. It made me laugh.
Well, they
got
just
shot
sat down to eat, and then they start getting shot at, and he's like, "Oh, it's something like, oh, I'll make sure I don't bring my business back here."
There's so many just quick lines that that really made me laugh.
And do you know what was funny as well, actually, like from my point of view, because Rachel can speak Spanish like kind of well. And so when they were speaking Spanish, obviously there's no subtitles or anything, but every now and again Rachel was just like translating a line or two. And I was like, I feel like I can understand as much as they can.
That was clever because you don't really need the subtitles because it's obviously all in their point of view and you can get the gist of what's going on.
Yeah.
So that was a clever choice to be like, be kind of experiencing it in their eyes. So you don't actually need to know what exactly literal translation.
Yeah, 100%,
I think I like it
man,
near the end.
because it kind of like focuses you in on like other cues. So like because you can't understand what they're saying, like you have to kind of like read the room a bit in the way that they are. So yeah, I think that's a really clever choice.
Yeah, it is like not it that kind of choice does happen now and then, but I can't help but be jealous of somebody that could understand everything that's being said. I'm always so curious.
I think I just like the bit where the Capitan kind of comes in and he's just like, I don't know what he's saying obviously, but he's kind of gone like, what's happened here? And they've gone like, dos, dos hermanos, and he's like,
Oh
dos
yeah,
hermanos.
yeah. That was the only Spanish I said. It was like, oh, what happened here? How many people was it? Dos. Two people. Yeah, but then afterwards they have the what were they called? It was the
Bandidos,
Banchos.
Yankees.
Indeed.
Bandidos,
Yeah,
Yankee.
yeah, that's something.
Oh yeah, oh right. So it was the American bandits. So it's like, but it's the way but it's also the way that the captain says, "Bandito Yankees." Like I was like, oh, it's the Bandito Yankees. I was like, oh, okay, sure. I was like, it's like, yeah, like got a load of Spanish. I need to know what Spanish is. Put the money in the bag is though. I'm just like, what they didn't get to that far in the list. But it was like, yeah, that's the thing. The thing. So
that just reminded me that first scene when they just arrive in Bolivia and they go to the bank and there's kind of like a moment of hesitation before you can see they're both like, we're out of our depth.
Sundance is just waiting for Butch to like understand something.
Yeah, that's great. That there's so much great like face acting in this as well as like dialogue as well, because it's kind of like they picked two amazing actors with such piercing blue eyes, and how they use their eyes to kind of indicate things going on so well, almost like with Road to El Dorado's animation. The face is so like expressive, and the two actors like so good because Paul Newman and Robert Redford can just like act their socks off without even saying anything. It's just you can either laugh or be enthralled by what they're doing, and they're not even uttering a word. So that just shows you how good they are.
Well, I was also distracted by how beautiful the like in the early sepia scenes where like you could see how the light is like filtering through Paul Newman's eyes. They're just so striking and beautiful. It's like, wow.
Yeah, that's another thing I think that deserves a lot of credit, because I mean it's so easy to just like it's unless it's something that's like amazing. I don't think it's something that you usually pick up on. But there was a point where I don't think it was even anything special was going on. I think it was a bit where they were on the balcony and they were kind of like overlooking that guy trying to put a posse together, and so like it wasn't even like a particularly special scene. But I turned to Rachel and I was like, I really like the cinematography in this. Like it's just everything was just set up in a really nice. Just like a really like visually like pleasing way. I think I really like looking at it as much as anything else.
Yeah, cinematography, amazing.
Yeah.
I did love that. So I meant to say this like way earlier. But when you were saying about how quickly they established stuff, and I was like, actually, yeah, that impressed me as well. But it was like genuinely like the first scene where, like the butcher's just kind of walking through, and he's just looking at a bank, and he's just like, and he's kind of just looking it over, and then he kind of goes in, and the security guard instantly is like, "Fuck you, buddy," and he's just like, and then like he sort of walk out, and he's just kind of like, "Hey, this bank used to be so pretty. What happened?" He's like, "People kept robbing it," and he was just like, "Still price to pay for beauty," and I was like, You got so much of Butch there, just already. Like you've only heard him say like two sentences, but you've already got so much understanding of him.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just like, just let me fucking do what I want to do and keep everything pretty. Like, what's the answer?
Do you know that in a weird way, it kind of reminded me of Stand By Me a little bit. Like just that, I think it had like a similar spirit where it was just
Yeah, I'm just wandering aimlessly to get to somewhere. I know what you mean. It has that sort of, and the way they bicker and the camaraderie that comes with it.
yeah.
Yeah, I see it. Also, shout out to Kenneth Mars, the sheriff, I think, or he's just trying to rally the townspeople to go after him, and none of them are like biting. And then that guy comes in with his bike, and he tries to make it sail.
Funny, man. Like it's the way that he handles it as well, because like it's how up front the dialogue is, because he's like, "Hey, I'm trying to put a posse together," and he's like, "Yeah, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to do a little selling."
Yeah, that's so Simpsons, isn't it?
I just love that scene as well, where like it's after they've just done the train heist thing, and he's just like, "Oh, come on, we better deal with it," and everyone goes, "No," because he's like, "Well, who's going to supply their own gun?" And no one, her hands going. He wants me to supply the guns, and the same amount of hands go up. It's like, for God's sake. So well, I'm going to go do it myself, and you have to explain to your kids why that's happening. And everyone's like, "That's fine."
God bless America.
But yeah, that was funny. It's already been talked about, but that made me laugh out loud as well. When because I thought that was going to turn into like a significant part of the story, like that sheriff trying to gather somebody up, or like he was going to go after them. And I thought like they're going to have some sort of jump on Butch and Sundance. But then you go up and look, and they're just watching that whole thing that whole time. It was just really funny.
Yeah, it's never the focus. Like the antagonists are never the focus. It's just from their viewpoint. It's like, yeah, we're above the law. We can do what we like. We can. That's what's so funny about it. It's just, and so a good choice to kind of like not focus on that, because like I said before, other films would be like cutting back and forth to like the sheriff's point of view, and he's this like downtrodden guy. He's a family man that's down in his luck, and he drinks, and he has an estranged daughter, and it's just all this baggage that you don't really care about, because you only care about Sundance. So that's what's the important thing, is that they chose to be like, yeah, let's just focus on these guys. Their story is more interesting.
It's so well put together. Like it's I think that there was one point where I was thinking like I don't know if I'm like more impressed by it because it's like 1969 and the way that it's treating people isn't sort of like typical for a film from 1969. But I don't know. I don't even know if it is kind of having that much of an effect. I think like even without that, it's just so well put together. Yeah. It's kind of like that dialogue thing where like you could just as easily sit and listen to it as a podcast. Like the conversations are so like it's just a really nice back and forth the whole way through.
Yeah, it has like so much like authenticity that when you said like podcast, it does feel like that. Yeah.
Right. But Corey, you said you didn't like the music. Was that just because of it's because of the style of the '60s soundtrack, or was it more than that?
It was
such a
like
good delivery,
yeah.
by the way.
There was something I was really enjoying about the film overall. It was just like, and I can like lightheartedness, cheesiness, corniness, all that good stuff, the happiness. I did think it was sweet, what they were doing with riding the bike with the raindrop song. It just didn't fit well with how I was feeling about the movie up until then, and for me, and there was another song choice, and I actually can't remember what scene it was. I should have written it down, but it just like made it kind of like shifted the tone for me of the movie to something too light, too kind of sappy, happy, cheesy for me. Compared to the rest of the movie.
There was
So
there was
like
a
maybe
common criticism from people like Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. Yeah, this wasn't very successful when it came out, and yeah, the soundtrack was a big bugbear for people.
Really?
Yeah, it's a shame. Because in some ways it does date it, but at the same time it gives it its uniqueness, because no other westerns would do anything that daring at that time. For Burt Bacharach, who was known for doing like pop songs from the '60s, and his soundtrack would be an a cappella jazz score for a western is so like off the wall, especially even to nowadays. It's kind of like, oh. So I admire its boldness in a wide way for how different it is and how extreme it is. It kind of works because of the polar opposites of what it is supposed to represent. It kind of
I do
represents the mood rather than the tone.
I do appreciate that I was trying to do something different and unusual, and I do think like I like some other different and unusual aspects about this film. But I think maybe I just think it could have just been like blended in a bit better. Maybe I don't know. It just like felt like so like too jarring of a shift all of a sudden for me. So yeah, that's just yeah.
Yeah. I think that was another
Yeah.
moment during the credits where when it came up like Schoolboy Burt Bacharach, I was like, what? But I think I think maybe me and you, Ben, are probably like pre-exposed to getting on with that just because it's quite a typical Simpsons thing again.
Yeah, yeah, because it's kind of like something they do a lot as well, just using an off the wall kind of like sound for what you see. It kind of like it's not an obvious choice, but when you think about it, it's like, oh, this is quite a sweet idea, especially with using raindrops. Because I think there was another song they were going to use, and I can't remember. I wish I made a note of it, but it would have been way more jarring. It would have been more like using a proper '60s Beatles track on top of that, and that would have been more like, yeah, that's kind of like not right. But I think because this is a kind of an easy listening kind of like pop classic, it works because it's not so like, yeah, there's no like distorted guitars in it. There's no rock and roll drums. It's just kind of like a happy, cheery tune of the '60s. It doesn't kind of, it's inoffensive enough to kind of work just about. And yeah, like the jazz part of the score is all like a cappella, so it doesn't sound like, oh, that's a saxophone or blah blah blah. It's just people's voices doing the harmonies versus.
That
Yeah, so that's why it kind of is different.
that was sorry, that you just reminded me that was the second part of the music, that other piece of music that didn't really work for me in the where for what was happening and the rest of the movie. Yeah, you just reminded me.
Mm. Yeah,
It's
On
like
Bolivia sequence, right?
yeah, it was definitely in Bolivia. I appreciate the songs on their own. I don't think there's anything wrong with the songs on their own. It's just like how they fit in. It just
on what's it called? Emmanuel's normal trivia IMDb DB whatever pageable. It says the song "Raindrops Keeps Falling on My Head" was written after the rough cut was completed, and when Robert Redford first saw it in the movie, he thought it was terrible. The agents for singer B.J. Thomas regretted letting him do it and thought it would ruin his career.
Oh, bloody hell, was it that? Jeez.
Oh man.
It became such a hit though, because of the film and randomly because it's a soft spot in my family because it was my grandma's favourite song when it came
Was
out.
it?
She adored it
oh,
for that reason.
that's
But
nice.
yeah, I need to figure out what song. So bug me.
Do you know what probably is not helping me is I'm pretty sure the first time I heard that Raindrop song was in Austin Powers. So that's like just like a pretty
Oh, was it really used in Austin Powers? It probably was. It would seem like it would have worked because of that being 1960s adjacent James
I
Bond spoof.
remember Burt Bacharach being in Austin Powers. I don't remember
Yeah,
Raindrops being in it.
Didn't he wasn't that the song that he was singing when he showed up?
No, I thought he was singing I don't know songs. Do you?
was it The Look of Love? It might have been that.
Oh, it might
Oh
have been the Look of Love.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
a different song.
Yeah.
Okay, I am a bit confused, but
So weirdly, I remember the first time I heard it because it was like so do you remember Stars in Their Eyes? So it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it was a show where like basically people would go on and they'd have like a makeover to become like a sort of like an artist. So like you'd have people go on and say like, oh, tonight I'm gonna be David Bowie, and then they'd come out as David Bowie and do a David Bowie song, and they had a celebrity version of it, and there was this French footballer on it, and this must have been when we were like 6 or 7. Like it would have been when we were like really young. And yeah, they had this celebrity version. There was a French footballer on it, and he was Burt Bacharach, and so he came out and did "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head," but because he had such a thick French accent, he was singing it like "Raindrops keep falling on me head," and it was just the way he was singing it. Like my dad found it so funny, and he was like sitting there like cracking up, and I have a really vivid memory of it because of that. And yeah, that was always like the version of the song that was in my head until I heard the actual song, and it was yeah. So yeah, yeah, it's weird. I have a really vivid memory of that being the first time I heard it.
I think what Burt Bacharach was singing in Austin Powers was "What the World Needs More
yeah,
is
that's
Love."
it.
Yeah,
Love. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was another love song. Yeah, it's love, sweet love.
Yeah.
Any more? 3 more?
I'm good. What's your pick, Corey?
Holy shit, guys! I forgot to pick my pick.
That's a
Wait,
man.
This is so funny. Last week, I thought it was going to be my pick this week, and then I'm like, oh no, it's not. I don't have to worry about it till next week. I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. And then also, but recently we were talking, is there a chance, Simon, that you know what you were going to pick next?
Oh no, it's because we wasn't sure because Alec was not here last week, and so I was like, if he doesn't pick, I've got. I mean, like, I have my pick ready and like ready to go, but I have my pick ready to go since last year. So a question of like, so it was a question of like, if there was a problem, we can change like the rounds and schedules a bit. But do you have an idea for what you want to pick?
I do. I have a pick list, but there was some I had been thinking about maybe adding. Like I wanted to put more thought into it than right now. So if you're, I can come up with a pick, not on this minute. I
You
can
have
come up with a pick.
until midday tomorrow.
Yeah, I can do that if I need to. But if you're open to switching with me and just like saving me right now, you can do that too.
Oh,
It's literally up to you guys. I think half. Well, I think yeah. So like half of us know what it is. It's a question of like, do you think you want to wait or do you want to like keep it? Or you can do it now.
As long as it's not the Goblin Queen or Crown, whatever it was.
Well, okay. Well, Ben, you know what it is. What do you think? Should we keep it, or should we just wait?
I think if Corey wants more another week, then we should let you go. I think.
Okay, so it's me actually choosing now.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So okay, let's get into it then. So, for like my whole picking of films for this whole year, as I explained to, I think it was Emmanuel first. I based it on the concept of just being the letter A or AA round. So essentially, all of my picks throughout this year have either been animated or Asian cinema. All of my picks for this year has been animated or Asian cinema. So it was a question of like, what do I want to choose for my final round? Or final pick. And I was like, I picked, well, Emmanuel like stole like the Asian cinema part for me because he picked something really like heartbreaking like Hope. And I was like, well, I can't keep up with that. That's too much. Like, so animated film. I picked like one of the best animated films of all time. Yes, of course, it is Shrek. I picked Shrek as the best animated film of all time. It is the Oscar-winning Shrek. That is what I picked. I decided this from like last year, and it's like yes, it's gonna be in film club. It's the best animated film ever. I love how you guys are laughing. It's great. Yeah. So that's my pick. It's gonna be Shrek. I was pleasantly surprised when Alec picked El Dorado. I was like, oh, we can keep the DreamWorks theming. But I was like, yeah, that's like yeah. So that's my pick.
Nice.
Since we've changed around, my pick is now Shrek.
Well,
I mean, like,
going, Corey.
bad luck, great.
I can see Corey. My wheels are turning already.
So,
Like, awesome.
yeah.
I like it. Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
yeah.
Yeah, I like Shrek.
What?
I hope people do.
I thought Shrek gave you nightmares.
Yeah, when I was a child.
Well, yeah, you still refuse to watch Space Jam on that basis.
Yeah, but I also don't like The Wicked Witch of the West, but I will watch Wizard of Oz or I'd watch Wicked.
Shrek gave you nightmares.
That's the whole question.
Green. That's not easy being green.
Yeah.
I've got a very vivid imagination, that's my problem.
Okay. So, but in all seriousness, like, yeah. So Shrek is my final pick of this year, and I've got to think. I don't know if I want to keep doing themed years or themes for like the next year. We'll see how it goes, how I feel. But like, this is what I've chosen for the best animated film, and I'm imploring you to give me your score or nominations eventually when we get to like end of the round. So it's like. It's also recency bias, so hopefully it'll stick in your mind.
It's going to be hard for me to not give it to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
No. For best animation for the
right.
end of year thing. It's gonna be in your mind, and I got recency bias, so it's quite good. So it's great. It's available.
Shrieking.
I mean, Shrek is probably available on Now TV or something. It's probably available everywhere.
It must be on Netflix as well, surely.
Yeah,
It's always been on somewhere.
yeah, it's very easy to find. I feel like some of us probably still have like a DVD of it somewhere hidden in like a cupboard.
Oh, no.
It's Shrek, you know, with all the memes like how Shrek is love and Shrek is life.
Dorado had a lot of memes, but Shrek's got
Oh
like
no,
excellent
we
memes.
don't want to invoke these.